All right, we are live. Welcome to the Saturday stream. Another Saturday night, and I ain't got nobody. But this week I have not only one person, but two people, because we have our usual guest on the Saturday stream, Mr. Simon Roberts, but we have an additional guest, Mr. Paul Cox, who you may have seen on the rival podcast, Spiked. How are we both doing, lads?
Very good.
All right, thanks, Nick. Yeah, I thought you were at least going to mention our podcast in the week.
No. I was trying to think of a weird credit to give you both. I didn't think of it for Simon, but that one is your credit because you went on a rival podcast that is known to diss me in print and on the internet. But you just
I was on there to talk about you actually.
Yeah, I know. That was most of it. How was it? Was it good?
It was fine. Yeah, they got like a studio and stuff with chairs and things.
Right.
Novel.
Well, they're in the pocket of big liberal, aren't they? So they get all that money. They're in the pocket of big libertarian Marxists. So that's where all that cash is. Simon, how's it going?
Good. I'm screaming inside with rage and pain as usual. But as Bill Hicks says, plastering on a fake smile and plowing through this shit one more time.
Absolutely. That's what this stream's all about.
Yeah.
I'm sure people will tell us if the sound isn't equal. I've used the auto feature. Patsy Kensit, and that is the real Patsy Kensit, by the way. Loved you in Lethal Weapon, whichever one. That was it 2. Says Nick is quickly eating a Muller corner and Toblerone until he's not furiously angry by the end of the stream. It's very close, Patsy. I went to the shop quickly to get my Diet Cokes, and I should have been back quicker, but I was trying to put through a discounted loaf of bread, but it didn't. It said item not recognized in bagging area or whatever, even though it was the correct item, and that completely froze the machine. So there was no one around, so I just furiously went to another machine, went through the whole process again, and it happened again. And then I finally found someone who, until then, had been scanning at an incredibly slow rate through someone's entire shopping trolley of goods, with a kind of rate that I've only really seen in kind of collapsing countries at that kind of pace. I was in South Africa once for an advert. I haven't really seen someone move that slowly since then. So that's what delayed me, guys. But here I am, all good. And apparently the audio is good, according to Rory. Oh, hey, Rory. Thanks for joining. That's our great legend, Rory, who helps us with so much. And tonight, the plan is to go through Lucy Connolly's interview with our friend, Alison Pearson. And hopefully the Telegraph won't zap us for copyright. We did get zapped on the Enoch Powell stream. That got zapped into oblivion by ITV. And we got zapped for monetization on the Paul stream I did with Paul the other day from GMB. Is that what it's called? Good Morning Britain. So we're going to try not to get zapped by anyone this time, and just hopefully it'll stay up. And I don't. This is a different dynamic, isn't it? Like I think on Academic Agent streams with Simon, I'm the Paul of that stream. I'm the everyman of that stream, and Simon's probably. I think Simon's the Simon of that stream. But he's now the who's Simon on the. I can't figure it out.
It's
I didn't do maths.
Yeah, no, it's difficult to know really. I mean, I see Paul as basically the nice guy, the reasonable guy.
Oh, and, nice. That's good.
Yeah, and I'm the sort of the rumbling malcontent in the corner. I think for this stream, I'll probably come up with solutions that are unreasonably vicious towards social problems. Yeah,
and I see myself as necessarily dumbing down the intellectualization that you guys do for the gammon. So you'll say like clever words and stuff, and then I'll just put it into gammon parlance.
Gammonese. Well, I don't know if that's even true, Paul, but if it is, that's certainly how I feel on the Academic Agent streams when they start going on about Soviet Russia. And I'm like, I haven't read a book. I did 11 years of comedy.
I've already got double-edged comments. I've got double-edged comments in the chat. I've got erudite Simon, and then someone saying, "Who's Simon?" There you go.
I know they build you up, Simon, and they knock you down.
Tabloid mentality. Yeah.
All right. Well, should we play the video and wait for everyone to complain about the start of the video? Can we start? I have nothing else planned. I'm not going to look at the chat. It just annoys me too much. Send in super chats if you want us to read them out at the end. Last time, no one did, except like 2 people. But Nigel normally does, but he's unfortunately out again. We rely solely on one Scottish bloke for most of our income. So you never know if these tight arses will cough up. But is that a mixed metaphor? Arse and cough up? You don't generally cough out of that part, do you? And if you do, it tends to be a medical issue that Simon could probably help you with.
And it's all content, let's face it.
Yeah. Simon, if you don't know, Paul was a gastroenterology.
I used to run a gastroenterology practice, yes. So
Did you?
Any bowel problems during the show, if you feel a need to discuss them, please do, and I'll give the best medical advice going.
But also, please don't.
Yeah, also don't. Yeah, right. Exactly.
All right. Well, so this is Lucy Connolly's interview. Obviously, you'll all know about this. There's been a lot of strong feeling on Twitter. Obviously, lots of annoying, stupid opinions. I mean, Simon, I think, has read Alison Pearson's articles. I'm sure you have, Paul, about the mistreatment of Lucy in prison. I made a reference to it because we did a piece on it on Lotus Eaters, so I read up on all of it again, and I made a reference online. And there's a lot of people agree with me. I mean, it got 7.8 thousand likes at the time of recording. And I just said, rereading Alison's piece about the mistreatment of Lucy in jail, I'm filled with pure hatred for the current regime. Because if you read it about how she was treated, you couldn't have any other view. Or so I thought, but many people have on Twitter. And we've had all the usual lefties saying, oh, no, she pleaded guilty. She pleaded guilty, as if that's like the entire story. Then we've had some even on the right saying, well, either saying this is terrible and the government must sort it or something, like Chris Philp, kind of quite vague. Doesn't really make sense, leaves an easy open goal for the left. And we discussed this, me and Paul, on our recent stream. Or you've got the Jacob Rees-Mogg saying, I think you'll find Lucy didn't have a jury trial, so it's not an example of two-tier justice. It's like, actually, it is Jacob because she was persuaded to plead guilty and didn't really know what she was getting into. I claim, other people say, no, she totally did understand what she was getting into, and this is all just completely fair and objective. And Dan Hodges put out a tweet today. Do you think I should read out my reply to that now as an intro?
Yes, go on.
It's quite long, though. Basically, so this is how I see it. Dan Hodges put out a tweet. Just to be clear, to believe Lucy Connolly's defenders, you have to also believe the police, the Crown Prosecution Service, the initial prosecution barrister, the initial defense barrister, the initial judge, and 3 individual appeal court judges were all acting under direct orders from Starmer. I reply, this is, of course, an absurd straw man. The point is the legal system is one with the prevailing ideology. And you don't have to wade through political theory to understand this. While sentencing Lucy, the judge literally said, it is a strength of our society that it is both diverse and inclusive. Why would a judge suddenly offer this irrelevant and at best highly subjective political opinion? Because what he meant was, you have sinned against our progressive doctrine and must be punished particularly harshly for this greatest of all crimes. The institutions and individuals Dan lists all live consciously or unconsciously under the presuppositions of the current regime and enforce or follow its strictures as a matter of course, as indeed does Starmer itself. So I'm not going to say it any better than that tonight. So, I thought I'd just read that out. And really, I'm saying, of course, there's no such thing as this objective justice in our current society or probably in any regime. And the fact that a judge in his sentencing remarks literally made that statement just proves the point. It was an utterly bizarre statement. So Lucy was a political prisoner. The Sun is saying it, and people are very threatened by the fact that the Sun is saying that, and that they're all going bonkers. David Yelland complained about it on Twitter. He said, alarming, political prisoner, my old paper competing with Mail, Telegraph, GB News, et al. This is dangerous stuff with unknown consequences. And I said the dangerous stuff was an already clearly two-tier system that then jailed a mother for a tweet. That is what causes unknown consequences, which we are now beginning to see enjoy. So this is the world we're in, where Lucy actually is a sort of hero to one side and a villain to the other. That's a little intro. Any comments, guys, before we start?
Yeah, I shared a tweet about 30 minutes ago, so just before we came on air, and because Alison Pearson has just retweeted it, humble brag, I thought I'd mention it as well, because I saw your tweet and it inspired this thought of mine, because I was just researching today about how much power a UK Prime Minister has over the judiciary. And of course, strictly speaking, the UK Prime Minister does not have direct control over the judiciary. The UK operates under a system known as judicial independence, meaning the judiciary is separate from the executive, which is the government, and the legislature, which is Parliament. However, I say, you have to believe in fairies to believe this speech did not change the direction of day-to-day process. Within 9 days of that speech, and the speech I share, which is the far-right thuggery speech, full force of the law, everyone's going to be held on a remand speech, interestingly, all very clear directions. I said within 9 days of that speech, there were 419 arrests, and within a month of that speech, 369 of those arrests were in prison. If that is, it's very difficult to make a direct correlation between that speech and what's gone on at ground level policing. But I think it's also very difficult to argue that that speech did not influence the direction of travel. And I think history will bear this out. Lucy Connolly, whether she deserves to or not, will be held up as a martyr. And I think it's starting that people are falling. The crack is opening once again, left and right. Progressivism versus normal people, And it's mental that it's happening continuously over this type of thing, where a mum just gets no one likes the tweet. Some people might even like the tweet. That's the beauty of free speech. You're allowed to like it if you want to. I disagree that it was of any use, and so does Lucy Connolly. But at no point should anyone spend any time with a police officer, let alone behind prison bars, for a tweet, particularly a deleted one. So I'm genuinely still, particularly after reading a lot today, really quite sort of pissed off with all of this. Pardon my gammonary.
Yeah, I was furious the other day reading, because I had to read this for Lotus Eaters, and just rereading the way she was treated in the court. Grabbed by these 6 prison officers and pushed and I mean, I'll just read some of it as an intro. Lucy was on her way back from the gym when a group of officers, 5 or 6 of them, sprang out of nowhere and accosted her. "You are no better than anyone else here. You're all going to A1, Lucy." Now, A1 was like a really bad wing of the prison that was known as the Bronx, colloquially. Lucy was petrified. She started crying, leant back against the wall, and slid to the ground. Officers used restraining methods on her that are supposed to be reserved for violent or abusive prisoners, not polite, cooperative childminders. They bent her over forwards with her arms bent sharply back. Her hands were tightly handcuffed. "I was in excruciating pain," Lucy told Ray on the phone later. "I thought, what the hell are they going to do to me?" She was manhandled up 3 flights of stairs with officers wearing body cameras shouting at her all the way. She was dumped in a filthy cell with what looked like excrement on the walls. An officer insisted it was coffee. While Lucy lay on the floor sobbing, some of the wing's veterans began to rally to her aid, approaching her door and calling out, "Lucy, we know who you are. Don't worry. You'll be fine here." So the actual violent prisoners are sort of saying, "Why are you in here, Lucy? Don't worry, we'll protect you," and things like that. One of them even gets a radio in for her and shouts at the screw to let it in, and things like this. So it's quite extraordinary the way she was treated. I mean, one thing I haven't said is obviously she shouldn't have been arrested in the first place. That's sort of a given, isn't it? It should be, but there we are. I don't want to say too much because it'll go on forever. But anything to add, Simon, before we?
No, I largely agree with you and Paul. And in respect of this idea about the contact between Keir Starmer and the judiciary and it being poo-pooed, I mean, I think we all think when Henry II said, "Who will rid me of this troublesome priest," when he was thinking of Thomas à Becket, it wasn't like he was doing it to himself on the toilet one day in privacy. He was doing it within earshot of everybody else who he wanted to absorb that lesson. I mean, we're obviously way past that kind of political system now, but we do work in a kind of consensus and feedback system where it's kind of fairly obvious that the political thinking at the top percolates down institutionally, and perhaps vice versa. It comes back through academia and those institutions back into government. So you're inevitably going to have the sensibility affecting the kind of quite highly politicized activist judges that we have nowadays, without them having to be directly briefed by a call from Keir at number 10.
Absolutely. And yeah, like you say, he wasn't in the privy when he said that. And it's very, and now it's very complex. And yeah, the idea that Starmer says something and just means nothing, and he's following it as well. How much he's a dictator or the follower of this ideology, one can discuss endlessly, but it's, yes, the idea of this totally independent. I mean, why did the judge offer that statement in the censor remarks? He's outed himself. He may as well have said Allahu Akbar or you do not talk about Fight Club. It's what's called in the theory a political formula. He's come out with or for that matter, Christ is king, if you want to go down that route. He's just come out with a statement there, diversity is our strength. That's a complete non sequitur, except to say I am a reinforcer of the prevailing ideology. And just quickly say, Nigel is here. He says, "Drunk Nigel is here. Lucy was done over," and he's put in a super chat. What a legend. Well done, Nigel. Thanks, Nigel. All right.
Nigel, if you could get more and more drunk as the evening goes on, that'd be great. Because
that would be ideal. we want that cashola for Paul's rashes. Paul's little farm of little pigs he's got. He has to feed. And my nephews need shoes. Luckily, my brother and his wife have good jobs. So, all right, should we crack on?
Absolutely.
All right, let's do it. And let's have the complaints about sound.
To all the people that, jeer and that I was sent to prison, think it's a good thing, think it's funny, hope that they broke me while I was in there. Well, I'm here to tell you that they didn't.
Have you been Keir Starmer's political prisoner?
Absolutely. Different officers do it different ways, but they can really hurt you if they want to. And they decided on that day they were going to really hurt me. And I mean, really hurt me.
Lucy Connolly.
Hi.
380 days in prison for a tweet written in the heat of the moment. You've been described as Keir Starmer's political prisoner, the poster girl for two-tier justice in authoritarian Britain. That's quite a heavy load for a wife, mum and childminder from Northampton who collects.
Just very quickly, someone says too loud, the next person says too low. So you see exactly what I'm up against. Couldn't
I
really
think
be clearer.
I think they're being sarcastic.
It's impossible to help, because if they weren't, they'd say exactly the same things, because that's what they say every time. So it is quite loud for me. But I got it on full because normally it's too quiet. But let's try it.
Mark was joking.
Mark was joking. Oh, so the too low person was serious, or were they joking?
Patsy was also joking, and Nigel's getting drunker.
It's just
so we don't even know. So we don't have no idea.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
use emojis.
Sickening. Who are these people?
It's a low trust chat.
They don't pay out. You can tell different quality. Nigel's already paid up. These people are just like causing
Nigel's
trouble.
not even listening. He's just
They will
drinking.
be booted brutally from the chat.
Now they're saying it's too medium. There you go.
Yeah. All right. Next one is going to be kicked out forever. Because I'm the Keir Starmer of this stream. Full force of the law. All right.
Bridgewater, China. Lucy, how are you feeling? You've been free woman for 24 hours.
Yeah, I'm doing okay. I wasn't really believing it until I saw it. I obviously don't trust the system. So I was thinking, I believe that this is my release date when, I knew that was my release date from the beginning. So it was not a surprise. I did, all my time.
Yeah.
But I knew that there really wasn't any other way they could keep me in there. But I don't trust the system.
We communicated. You said, I think they'd keep me in here forever if they could.
I do actually believe that. I don't know. I would never understand. As you said yourself, I am just a woman from Northampton living in a 3-bed semi that worked as a childminder. A husband is an engineer. Okay, he was a counsellor, but that people forget that's almost like a second job. His first job was an engineer, as a father, as a husband. We are nobodies. We are not known to anybody. So I will never understand how it got to this. And, as I said to you, there's people that have done things far worse and people wouldn't be able to name them, but they'd know my name. And I just find it all really, really bizarre. The whole thing bizarre.
Before we go back to the Southport massacre and the tweet that started this nightmare for you, I wanted to get your opinion on this recent case. Some people have said it's similar to yours. Ricky Jones, who was a Labour councillor during that Southport riot period, he addressed a protest. He said disgusting Nazi fascists should all have their throats cut. Ricky Jones has just been found not guilty of encouraging violent disorder. He was held on a lesser charge, while you, Lucy, got 31 months in jail for a crime that was only online. Is that an example of two-tier justice?
I think it is. However, I'm pleased that the justice system did work for Ricky Jones, and I'm, glad that he was able to get bail and he was able to seek, good legal advice and, have time to stop and think about how he was going to plea and all of those things. I wasn't, given that luxury. I don't advocate that we should be throwing anyone in jail or for saying, he did, as I did, he said something that he shouldn't have done. It was silly. Does it really make him a criminal? Should we be putting people like him and I in prison? Yeah. Absolutely not.
Just want to say, I think that this magnanimity plays very well for her. I don't know if that's a considered position that's or one that she's been asked to consider, putting out. I mean, I wonder how much of an element of her being prepared for the interview. I don't want to be too conspiratorial, but I just wonder how much of that, given the rumors of her talking to people, lawyers from the Trump admin and so on. And one other thing, a slightly heretical thought I had, I sort of wanted her to come out of prison, looking a lot more harrowed and brutalized, just for sheer propaganda purposes,
like a face tattoo, Simon.
Something, sort of Russian prison kind of tattoos all over.
Couple of teardrops for the people that she's asked in prison.
Sort of hardened and shaking, something like that. But I'm glad she's well, obviously. But go on.
Sorry, Simon. One thing I would say that's really important at this point is two-tier will come into this discussion a lot, I'm sure, amongst ourselves and with Lucy and Alison. But this particular situation that she's describing now between Rodney Jones, I always call him Rodney. Ricky Jones and Lucy's particular case at this point in their case is the epicenter of the accusation of two-tier because of the way they were treated differently at this point. Because from this point onwards, the opportunity for bail, time to really digest and think about what steps are going to be taken next, which was the case for Ricky, versus the case for Lucy, which was right in the middle of a storm, make a decision quick. You're locked up straight away. You're in prison for a month. You have no idea what's going on. You're treated incredibly differently to most people would have been treated in this situation. In fact, it's so unprecedented. Everybody now knows your name. That's where the two-tier element comes in, and I think it's worth bearing in mind.
All right, thanks, chaps. Yeah, I mean, it was very magnanimous of her to say that about Ricky Jones. I suppose it's what else she's going to say. I might not have said it. I'd have said, well, he's way worse than me. He's a dick. But that's me. Just want to say thanks for the super chats. It's conventional to read them at the end, but actually, or some people read them at the start. I'm just going to read them now. Nigel says the establishment is rotten. I've been part of it. I did what I could, and I did protect folk. I'm sure you did, Nigel. Thank you very much. Ducks and Coffee. Greetings from Northeast Links. Yes, that is where my dad's family are from. My grandma's funeral was in Grimsby, so thank you for being here. Love Nick, and Paul is a really fine commentator, always worth listening to. Then he says something vaguely rude about not knowing who Simon is, so we're not even going to read it. So keep the super chats positive, guys, especially about me, but also about the others. All right.
But if you make a super chat over £100, say whatever you like.
That is true. Yeah. Although we have to divide that up, Paul. So if it's over 300 to say what you like.
Feel free to say anything you like about me. I do like it when people treat me really quite badly.
Yeah, you can't win because he just gets off on it. That's the thing. As Eminem once said, what good's a gun against a man who strangles himself? Yeah, that's also what Simon would say on day one of prison. You think you're stuck in here with me? No, you think I'm stuck in here with you? You're stuck in here with me. Rorschach from Watchmen. That is Simon day one. Paul would, of course, get on with everyone, immediately be running the prison and giving out the cigarettes at discounted rates for certain jobs. And it's just kind of guy just happily running it. Like, all right, mate. Oh, you want a cigarette? Yeah, I got a couple here. Just happily running the prison. Total geezer without any real trouble. That's just who he is. I would, of course, be in sort of all sorts of obscure beefs and plotting to kill someone and just plotting my moment for 5 years. Then I get out and it doesn't happen. Those are the different characters in the prison. Shouldn't be making light of this. We're quite serious.
The 29th of July last year, you were at home doing your child minding, 6 or 7 little kids running around that back garden room, all the chaos of that. What sort of ethnic background were the children running around in your house?
Most of my children, in the 11 years that I've been childminding, I looked after way less white British children than I have of children of, immigrants. Most of my children are born in Britain. I have a couple with Romanian passports or Nigerian passports and stuff. But yeah, I would say 90% of the families that I've worked for over the past 11 years have been of, ethnic backgrounds, Ghanaians, Nigerians, Romanians, Lithuanians, Polish, you name it.
But you had a really great relationship with those people from different...
I did.
Just quickly, I hate all this, but I understand the need of it. I understand it. I'm a realist, you know what I mean? But all this sort of, look how non-racist I am. I suppose in Lucy's thing, when she's being condemned by half the country as racist has been to prison, yeah, it's reasonable to do. As a general rule, I don't think we should play this game.
Yeah,
but
it's setting the scene, Nick, isn't it? It's very different. I mean, she is a childminder. That's the context. If I said that I had 6 immigrant children in my back room, it'd be a very different vibe.
Yeah, be the grimmest story of the year. Be a panorama episode. Yeah, fair dues.
That is one of the takeaways of the interview, that you have this contrast with the sort of sadistic cruelties that she seems to undergo at the hands of the prison officers. At the same time, how much she is prepared to kind of lean into this sense of being the kind of liberal person that presumably Keir Starmer's regime wants to see. She's, as people have said, she's very ordinary. She's that kind of level of the sort of perhaps, I don't know, typically median voter, let's say, in Britain. But as Evela's Sunglasses in the chat has said, it is dreadful optics, because you are going to sort of see a litany of these petty cruelties against one of the people who, if you like, can probably justifiably say, I've done everything the regime told me.
That's interesting. But I think she's the enemy of the regime in two senses. One, that they want to scare the ordinary person from ever speaking out. So she's the example. Say, look at this. We can do this to the most ordinary mother who's clearly a good person. Imagine what we can do to all of you lot. But number two, it's the pathological system, as we've discussed ad nauseum in our Dominic Cummings streams. It's the pathological system which is now behaving really in a way that's not. I don't know if it's any one individual, if there's any brain behind it anymore. It's become pathological in itself almost. So it doesn't matter whether Starmer is evil individually or not, really. It's about the system itself can only do evil things now. It's turned itself against the innocent British person and in favor of the foreign criminal. So that's just what it does now. Why, I don't really know anymore, but that's what it does. That's my theory. So she's therefore the enemy in the sense of a narco-tyranny. You know, the more innocent and law-abiding you are, the worse you are if you take the anarcho-tyranny scale to its logical conclusion. And the more of a foreign illegal immigrant who shouldn't even be here, then assaulting someone, then killing someone, then you're the ultimate savior of the current regime, because you're the most victimized. Anyway, I could go on. I just want to quickly say, someone says Alison has scrubbed up well for your show. Yeah, we love Alison. And also, hopefully the Telegraph won't zap this, but who knows? Those are usually algorithms. But I also want to say Alison is a subscriber, I think, and listens to our Dixon Cox podcast and the current thing. Though I probably shouldn't out her as such, should I? Because that's probably something will not help her.
This is a credible journalist. One of two left in the country, I think.
Okay, well, I was just joking.
Nearly all of my families, as I said to you earlier, when you look after somebody's children on that level, day in, day out, these people are doctors and dentists and teachers. They're busy people, and they needed someone they can rely on. And you build a relationship with these people. And, like one of my families, the Telegraph have written about, I supported their visa application and did all their paperwork and signed that all off for them and, supported them. And we need people like them. They were both doctors. They're an amazing family that, we absolutely should welcome people like them to the UK, because they're just amazing people and have a lot to give.
You found out on that 29th of July there'd been this horrific incident. 3 little girls, Alice, BB and Elsie Dot, had been murdered at a Taylor Swift holiday dance club in Southport. And obviously in those first hours, it wasn't very clear. Rumours were swirling online about had it been a migrant or so on. Lucy, what was your reaction when you heard that news?
Oh, I was just so upset, and angry beyond belief. Like when the red mist is there, and I just can't, and I still can't comprehend how, in this day and age, we can allow that to happen. How have 3 children gone off to a dance class and their parents never get to pick them up again? I do know how that feels like, because I've lost a child, but you, as somebody that's never lost a child, you cannot even begin to comprehend what those families will go through for the rest of their life. It's just, there's just no words for it, and I was just so upset,
You were quite afraid, I think, because Ray was coming home from work and he said that unusually you'd bolted the front door.
I'm a bit crazy like that because of things I've gone through. I'm a bit like, the first things I sort of think is, oh gosh, am I going to drop my daughter off at gymnastics on Thursday and some crazy person's going to go in there and do that? Oh, let's just, you have those feelings, don't you? And a lot of my parents did. A lot of my parents were saying similar things. They were really upset and really angry. And one of my parents said, I'm never letting her go to anyone but you and my mum. You just can't trust anyone or anything these days. It really did make people really uncomfortable about, letting their children out of sight. And I know that wasn't just my point of view from as a mother. It was the families I worked for, and that, and I've got lots of friends that were very upset about the situation and very worried, and were like, and I don't know, I used to get a bit aggy about the front door anyway, because obviously I've got older children, so I keep the front door locked all the time. So they'd go out, and then if they didn't lock the door or something, and so I used to just barricade the door and obviously you have to make sure.
you were in quite a heightened state.
Absolutely.
And at 8:30 that evening, you were on Twitter and you typed, let me just read this to you. Mass deportation now, set fire to all the effing hotels, full of the bastards for all I care. While you're at it, take the treacherous government and politicians with them. I feel physically sick, knowing what these families will now have to endure. If that makes me racist, so be it. Now that's a pretty angry, nasty thing to post. Looking back, what do you think made you write that, and what do you think about it now? What you said?
Of course, it wasn't my finest moment, and I definitely don't advocate violence or burning anything down or anything of the sort. I don't, to be honest, I don't. It was emotion. Does that make sense to you? I don't know what was going. I was just so upset and so angry, and just thinking to myself, when will this stop? You know, what? I was just anger, you know, like, and just I wasn't thinking rationally. I just typed it out and went, you know, on my way.
Do you think there's something about social media, Twitter in particular? You know, there's a swell of a particular discussion, and that you can find yourself, you know,
definitely
writing
absolutely.
things that you'd never say that in real life, would you?
No, my mum would not be happy.
Your mum would not be happy. She wouldn't.
No, and it's not something I would ordinarily say. It's not something I would advocate, and it's not me. It really isn't. And people can choose to believe that or not. You know, but people that know me and love me know that isn't me.
People talk about it being racist. Tweet. When I read it again, I thought it wasn't specifically about race. That it was distress about uncontrolled migration, putting children at risk and in jeopardizing safety. Is that more?
That was exactly what it was. But I know now, anybody that disagrees with my stance on that, I agree, and that's exactly the point I was coming from. But you know, the amount of people that, for example, on social, you're a racist, you're a bigot, and it's boring now. You know, that I feel that it's lost its meaning as a word now, because it's just thrown around, bandied around. So I was just almost like preempting it. Yeah, I know you're going to come back to me and say, oh, you don't like immigrants, you're a racist, this, that, the other. But as you say, it's not about that. It's just about making sure that the people coming into our country are vetted, and that, you know, we know that they're safe in society.
And those little children you were looking after that day, maybe only one of them white, English, they were at risk as well, right?
Everybody's children are at risk. It doesn't matter what, you know, a child is a child. It doesn't matter what colour they're from, where they've come from. It's our job as a country to protect our children and the future of our children. And to be honest, I don't think we do a particularly good job of that right now.
No. So you took Harley, lovely German pointer, for a walk, and you, about 3.5 hours later, you obviously thought better of it and you deleted the tweet. What was your thought process then?
Yeah, I just went for a walk, you know, put my AirPods in, took the dog for a few miles and calm myself down. That's my thing, exercise, go for a run, go for a walk, calm, you know.
Yeah.
And then I came back and I thought, oh, no, you can't write that. That's really not an okay thing to write. I didn't really mean that, you know, take it down. So that's what I did. I didn't comment on it. I didn't read the comments. I just deleted the post and didn't think much more of it, to be honest.
But somebody had screenshotted it and reported you. So 8 days later, the police came round to the house and they arrested you for inciting racial hatred. Lucy, you said to me, it didn't matter whatever I said, I was a lost cause. They wanted to hammer me. What made you think quite quickly that they wanted to hammer you?
Just the legal advice that I got. He was kind of, that was his advice as well. He was like, they're not playing by the rules of these cases. I've not seen anything like this before. You know, you should never have been. Yeah, you should never have been remanded, but they have remanded you. I'm going to try and get you bail, but you know, I'm not hopeful. Yeah, it was just the general consensus across the legal board, solicitors and lawyers and barristers, that these weren't normal circumstances. These cases were being treated different. And and they were giving out a lot heftier sentences to people than they ordinarily would. They were remanding people when they wouldn't ordinarily remand them. And then, of course, it's very difficult once you've been remanded to change legal team, to get legal advice, to get other opinions.
Yeah. But coming back to the police, so you're in the police station. Obviously, for someone like you, this is very frightening and alien territory. Do you think, looking back, that you were a bit naive and trusting about
absolutely You know, we've always been brought up, you know, the police are there to help you, not to stitch you up. And, you know, and obviously I had a solicitor, and I'd gone through the tweet with her prior to my interview, and I'd spoke to her, and her words to me were, when I explained myself and what I meant and what had happened, she said, you know what, Lucy, I think you've put that really eloquently. I think you should go in there and explain yourself to them. No comment, you know. And I think she was thinking at the same time, you know, this is really not, it was just a mistake, an angry mistake. You took it down. You didn't mean it. You're not, you know, this right-wing terrorist. And you've explained yourself really well. So go and do that in there. And obviously I had my interview. It went for, I don't know how long it was, but a while. At no point, you know, my sister was sitting next to me. At no point, you know, she kicked me under the table or nudged me or stop the interview and say, you know, you're doing yourself no favours there. You know, and she was happy with everything I'd said, and whether, you know, and I'd explained to the police what my stance on immigration and illegal, you know, made it quite clear that I know the difference between immigration and illegal immigration. You know, but
sorry for the delayed pause. I was trying to use a special hotkey that I set up that didn't work. I should just. No, it doesn't work. Sorry, carry on, Paul.
So
I was also just looking at our top chat as well. Our top fans are Nigel, Ducks and Coffee, Wendy, APKP3Z, Stuart H2709, and Hi Ho Kermit is number 6. Just wanted to read them out. Go on, Paul.
Yeah, so we're sort of 13, 14 minutes into the interview now, and we're just on the cusp of old and new world in my mind's eye, because everything that Lucy's describing now with her solicitor, the arrest by the police, it's all very old world in the sense that, you know, people don't get arrested for tweets. This is unprecedented. Okay, I said something nasty, I deleted it. We've all done it. And by the way, there, but for the grace of God, really. I mean, I wouldn't write what Lucy's written. But we've all had thoughts but thought about in anger, maybe tweeting it out. So there is some empathy I do have for people who get themselves in this situation, of course. But she's describing a situation, and, you know, I mean, she said she grew up in a world where we were taught to trust the police and they're there to help us. I'm not sure where that was. I don't know if that's ever been the case, but I understand what she means. A slightly darling buds of May view of the world, I would say. But let's go with it for the moment. She's describing that, of course, she can't. And what I find very interesting about this is her initial solicitor says to her, look, don't worry about it. Go and explain yourself. What you've explained to me is perfectly fine. If this was to happen today, under no circumstances, I would like to think, would any solicitor in the country say that at all. They'd say, logic isn't going to apply here, Lucy. It doesn't matter what you think and say. There is a doctrine which you're unaware of. There's a narrative which you need to abide by, and you haven't. You need to say nothing. You need to say nothing for as long as possible, and you need to plead not guilty. And I think this is where the step over into that world for all of us, but obviously at this point, Lucy's finding herself, because she's essentially walked into a trap. And I genuinely believe that. I believe that they wanted her to talk in that situation. They all knew what was happening. Okay, this was like, for me, this is my personal opinion, this was a kangaroo court. It was set up deliberately to get as many arrests and many convictions and as many sentences as possible to show Keir Starmer in his first couple of months, or this Labour government in the first couple of months, were not going to stand for this, and this is how they were going to deal with it. In a naive view, I think, that they thought that this would show the rest of the country that they're in charge. It's had quite the opposite effect, of course.
Yeah, I don't even see how that's contentious, because so many people pleaded guilty, right? And not just Lucy, and that was like a thing that was happening. Starmer made his big speech. People will be held on remand. There will be charges, and not just the people doing it, but the people whipping it up online, which clearly meant, in his mind, people like Lucy. So, yeah, it was all very clear. And we know police always say they can't cope with these things, especially if they erupt across the country at once. So, someone got a dial-up modem there that I can hear. That's who is that? That's
not
Paul.
me.
That's Paul. I've muted him. I don't know what he's doing.
Suppress him now.
I turned my fan. I think I turned my fan on.
You turned your fax on. It sounded like. So I can hear everything, but you can always mute when the thing's playing as well if you want. Anyway, if you're going to do something obnoxious like turn a fax from 1991 on. So
poor Paul.
This is what the stream's about.
Yeah,
that's what it's really about. Anyway, I think Paul's point is completely reasonable. It's not exactly a conspiracy, is it? Starmer knew he had to gain control, and his mind is how he wanted to do it. He's Mr. Crown Prosecution. And we all know they can't cope with uprisings around the country. The police always tell us that. So it's not exactly a conspiracy to say, go on.
This was his moment. I genuinely believe that within his mind, he thought this is perfect. This is absolutely perfect. The reaction to what went on in Southport played right into his hands, and it gave him the opportunity to flex his legal muscles and show the country that he wasn't going to stand for it. Perhaps had there been maybe 10 or 12 arrests with 5 or 6 people going into prison for, clearly violent acts, I think that probably would have been the reasonable outcome from whatever happened across the country in that time. But don't forget, this was a crescendo. I mean, look, we're really focusing on Lucy Connolly tonight for obvious reasons. But Lucy's emotional reaction was part of a national crescendo which reached to this point, which Southport was part of. But we've had the Leeds riots just a couple of weeks previous. Obviously, the whole country's been gaslit to this point for year upon year upon year, saying that what you can see is not true. These people cause no problem whatsoever. You should be imprisoned for noticing, essentially. So this is all part and parcel of a much larger picture, but it played right into Keir Starmer's hands, and he, through his naivete, I believe genuine naivete, or just pure hubris, believed that what he was doing was going to land, a political body blow and really set him as the leader of this country after 14 years of Tory rule.
Yeah.
All right.
I just want to say I was thinking along similar lines to Paul in that section as well. But this goes to the heart of something where I'll introduce a little bit of political theory. We talk about Niccolo Machiavelli, the great theorist of power, not to be confused with politics per se, but just the if you like, the laws of physics when it comes to governance of people. And he talks about 2 kinds of people involved in the process, the lions and the foxes. The lions you can think of as the sort of classic men who obtained and wielded power through force of arms in the past, it would have been. And your foxes, if you like, are your more classic politicians, your verbally skilled, persuasive, somewhat softer types of people. And there's always a struggle, if you like, within power politics between those kinds of people. And we have been living mostly in an era of foxes in the modern era. You're not dealing with stern old military reactionary types that you might have had 70, 80 years ago, populating the corridors of power. And the thing about foxes is they're not used to wielding, if you like, what we might call hard power or sort of hard coercion. And the tendency will be when they attempt to do so, when they attempt to sort of be very firm and draw lines in by force, they'll kind of they'll miscalculate and overstep the mark. And then it'll result in something which will be, let's say, in the modern parlance, optically bad, like this, where it looks like it's an excessive response. And what also fascinates me relating to that section that we watched is most people live with this sort of dissonance about the nature of power. They think they have this kind of, as you say, the kind of Ladybird book impression of policemen are meant to help you, and you can ask them the time and all of this sort of stuff. That was something that was a current thought when I was growing up as a kid in the 70s, and now you're seeing people coming, as Paul says, to this moment of fracture, this moment of dawning realization that power tells you one story on the surface and the reality is very different underneath. And it is kind of time people woke up to that sort of that duality that you have the top level narrative of how things are meant to work, and if you just apologize and say the right things and show contrition, you will be treated amicably and reasonably by systems. But power systems don't really care about any of that, and if they want to exert coercive compliance onto you, they will. And it kind of leaves people in this sort of state that she's in, of saying, I don't really get it. I don't understand. Why should it be like this? I saw another interview she did with Dan Wootton as well, earlier today. And she said when the police first came along and were about to arrest her, in her mind, she said to the police, oh, get real. But that's the thing. She sort of hadn't anticipated that it was very real. But she just, like many people would think, it's too petty to be arrested for this sort of stuff. She hadn't kind of fully accepted that the nature of the current power regime is that it doesn't matter what it looks like on the surface to you, it's what the purposes are underneath. And I sort of, kind of in a way, don't have sympathy for people who've sort of had their eyes closed to this stuff. And at the same time, I have great sympathy for people, family people, bringing up children, working a job. They've got a lot on their plate. So you can't be too cruel about it. But a lot of people have gone on for decades in this country, sort of turning a blind eye to this stuff and thinking, well, it sort of doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, very interesting. Just on Machiavelli, since I've read a lot of that stuff as well, I was actually wondering today whether Rupert Lowe is a lion. I actually asked myself, with that picture of him with the wheelbarrow, and he has all of his, I don't know if we're allowed to say the word on YouTube, but he has all of his, he has his armory back, and it's all in his wheelbarrow after the Zia Yusuf investigation. And I was thinking, you take Rupert Lowe and Ant Middleton and a couple of others, they could probably take over this whole thing. Not that I'm in any way encouraging it. I'm just speculating in a purely satirical way, because there's no force. It's all foxes all the way down. And imagine someone actually did come in with some lion qualities, how they could probably just take over. And my speculation today was, would the international community even rally and even do anything? I sort of feel like no. I feel like there's just not the will there. You can very easily, as we've seen, if you're one of these groups who are favored, you can sort of take over with the whip hand, so to speak, our society quite easily. You can win. You can get a teacher in hiding because he drew a picture. Just one example that springs to mind. You can have horrific crimes covered up on your behalf and so on. But equally, we're starting to see, not equally yet, but we're starting to see that if you want to close down an Epping Bell Hotel based on where you cite planning permission, but really you just don't want it anymore, you could also get that done, because now they are appealing that. But the regime is weak. It's foxes. But if a lion came along, imagine what he could do. If you think about how much bigger a lion is as well, even it actually works as well as a metaphor. A lion could actually take over in a world of foxes. And Farage is pure fox. Farage is pure calculation, rhetoric, and being clever. And if I say this now, then I won't say this then, and then I'll get in. And he's pure fox. But I think Rupert Lowe, like detain, deport, here are my guns. Here's the, I've shot my dog on the farm. I think he's got lion tendencies, and he ran a business successly, 30 million net worth. We don't know really if he's pure lion, but he might be. Someone like Ant Middleton definitely is.
You sort of, as you're correct there. And I think you sort of sense with Rupert, he kind of melds good qualities from both of the sides of the political phenotype. You can see that, he's perfectly able to move in the corridors of power in the sort of, a bleak corporate world that most of us don't see. And at the same time, be able to sort of draw his service revolver and say, follow me over the top.
I'm just laughing at Paul's comment. If anyone would like me to dumb down the lion and fox stuff, please say so. I mean, we're talking about two animals. How much more dumbed down can it get? We're talking about it in farmyard.
I was going to act it out for them.
We need Paul to suppress the high discourse at this point.
Yeah. I mean, foxes are just Blair types, manipulative, soft power. Lions are just like your general with a load of medals in some African country who's like, right, we're taking over. Basically, in my mind. And I tried to find it now, but I can't. It's too difficult to find, and it's from maybe a couple of months ago. But the Times had a poll, just going back to the Southport thing. The midwit idea was that Starmer's handled it well. He handled the riots well, but then he had problems. No, he didn't handle it well, because there was a poll showing that people were moving from Labour to Reform, and it gave you a graph of all the Starmer policies. And I really want to find this, because you could click on it, and it'd be like winter fuel payment, and that would have the highest awareness and the highest unpopularity. Then there'd be other things that were popular and had some awareness. Weirdly, one of them was the Great British Energy. Then it had things that were sort of moderate. And one of them that was unpopular and well-known was the prison, releasing people from prison was very unpopular and well-known. And just slightly less unpopular and slightly less well-known, but still unpopular and known, was the dealing with Southport. So it had like a -10 on both. Whereas like the Winterfield paper was like -80 on both. It had like a, yes, people are aware of this and they didn't like it, right? That was it. That was data that actually showed, at least amongst the red wall type people, they were very unhappy with that. So this midwit journalist opinion that Starmer handled the riots well, he didn't. Anyway, just wanted to add that. Should we go on?
Proceed.
I feel that was massively twisted and used against me, and I feel that I would have been much better just saying no comment, because they wouldn't have had anything to twist around back on me.
So police gave your statement to the Crown Prosecution Service. Mrs. Connolly doesn't like immigrants. She thinks they are dangerous to children. Did you say that?
Absolutely not. We had a conversation about how I think my words were, I need to get the police interview. I'm well aware of how important immigration is to this country. I'm well aware that if I went to Northampton Hospital right now, if I said I didn't want to be treated by an immigrant, I'd probably be dead. And like I said, some of my families that I work for, they're Nigerian doctors, and I would have them treat me over, they're the most compassionate people I know. So I'm well aware that the country needs immigration. I'm well aware that if we kicked every immigrant out tomorrow, we'd be screwed, So I explained this to them, and I explained it's not immigration that I have an issue with. I have no issue with people's skin colour, race, religion, anything of that. It's simply the fact that these particular group of people are unchecked, and I don't feel that it's safe for our children to be walking the street.
Yeah, we might be screwed, if she puts it, in the short term because we haven't trained up enough doctors due to very stupid reasons. Yeah. But we don't actually need this many people in the long term. I just had to say it, even though I understand the reasons.
This goes back to I think what Simon was alluding to earlier. I think you were, Simon. So forgive me if you weren't. Where there may well have been some readying of Lucy for these interviews, and I hope there was actually, because this is a lady that's got herself in problems for saying things. And she's best to. She very nearly said, "Then I'd much rather have some Ghanaian doctor look after me than." And then she couldn't think of anything, and said, "Well, they're pretty good." And there's a lot of this stuff going on at the moment. I wish personally that we didn't do this, on the basis that I think that we need to stop making the comparison and stop saying that identity is important within this. And the only thing we need to identify is those that wish to harm us and those that don't. And the rest doesn't matter, because the rest enables everybody to just make this incredibly divisive. We just look at this through the prism of those who wish to harm and those that wish to don't, those that don't assimilate and those that don't, etc. Then I think this becomes a much simpler argument, and it kind of destroys some of the narrative from the left.
All right, should we crack on? I'm annoyed that my hotkeys not working, but I don't know what's going on. I have to actually just physically press it.
People that we don't know who they are, where they've come from. And I appreciate we've got enough of people that are born in the UK that are, do awful things. But if we can just stop one child, something bad happening to them, that's one. One is too many, isn't it? Even if it's only one and I don't think for 1 minute that every single person coming over on a boat and living in a hotel is a rapist or a murderer. I'm sure the vast majority of them are really, really decent people just wanting to build a better life. But if
I'm not.
In my head, I was going to say Nick's not. And I thought, no, I won't say it.
Good to know I'm predictable. Good. Well, they're not. They're fighting age men coming over to steal our resources and get out of horrible countries. I mean, which is maybe understandable, but they're not these great people on the whole. Some of them are great people. Some of them might be. We don't know, but I wouldn't say most. Let's carry on.
Even if there's one or two in there, that's too many for our children.
So on the 4th of August, Sir Keir Starmer, let me quote him to you. I utterly condemn the far-right thuggery, be in no doubt that those who have participated in violence will face the full force of the law. The police will be making arrests, individuals will be held on remand, charges will follow and convictions will follow. I guarantee you will regret taking part in this disorder, whether directly or those whipping up this action online. Lucy, you were denied bail 6 days after the Prime Minister made that statement. You were a perfect candidate for bail, first-time offender, not a flight risk, but bail was denied. It was denied twice. Lucy, do you think Keir Starmer influenced the way you and others were treated by the criminal justice system?
100%. Yes. He'd already, when he made his speech in the beginning, this is before I was even arrested, I thought it was very divisive. It was very much, oh, well, if you're bothered about children being murdered, you're a right wing, you're far right. That's not, people are going to be and are entitled to be upset, deeply upset about the unnecessary death of children. And so let's not forget the other children that didn't lose their lives and what they now have to go through and what they went through. Nobody should have to go through that. So it's completely plausible that people are going to be upset and angry about the situation. So why not just say, listen, release the facts around the case. I understand in some cases they can't name people for legal and everybody's entitled to a fair trial, and I stand by that. I'm jumping a bit here, but that's another thing. Even had I gone to trial, it was so prejudiced by that point, by the government, by the police, by the press. I don't even think I would have had a fair trial, because people have been told stuff already that actually wasn't true.
We should add at this point.
Yeah, so just wanted to quickly add something we dealt with already in our stream, actually, which some commenter on YouTube called the best argument it heard, or the best distillation of the case, or something like that. And me and Paul went through it. And one thing we noted was, and borrowing from Morgoth's tweet on this, was that what does a jury of your peers mean in multicultural Britain? And I would also add to that, what does it mean in a divided, highly politicized Britain, where everyone's a political actor and everyone is relentlessly propagandized to by the media and on social media and so on? And, what does a jury of your peers mean now? If they saw me and recognize me from GB or wherever, or Lotus Eaters, it's over if they don't agree with me. And it may be over based on your race. It may be over based on a number of things. So what does a jury of your peers even mean? Jury trial is still much better than, trial by we don't like Lucy. But, it's not, this idea of a perfectly neutral jury becomes increasingly problematic in a multicultural, sort of increasingly sectarian society.
Good idea for a show there. We don't love Lucy. That's an interesting pitch you've given. I just want to say, well, she used the word divisive a few moments ago as well. And again, this is another one of those little markers that show that people imbibe and internalize the prevailing political culture, which is one of adopting this mode of consensus. Can I say, I don't mind politics being divisive. In fact, I think that is the purpose of politics, to lay clear demarcations between people's beliefs, which, they can argue, I suppose, in open debate. But divisiveness itself has become, again, one of these silently acknowledged taboos. You cannot be divided from people in some way. And this goes to the very heart of the problem of society at the moment, is that there are these riving internal contradictions that cannot be spoken about, because one of the great sins is to be seen as, quote, divisive. It's the kind of soft put down that's used, so-and-so is very divisive, this is very divisive, and so on. And we can't possibly entertain division. Why can we not? Or are we too insecure to say that, look, you agree with him, I agree with this guy, we disagree? What's wrong with that?
Yes, I've definitely noticed the use of the word divisive in that way. Anything Reform do, or actually any party further out than that, divisive. But someone here saying, yes, Sam, we don't love her, she's an NPC. I think that's a bit harsh, because she's just been in prison and she has to be very diplomatic. She was quite known for being outspoken before this. Obviously, that tweet got her in trouble, but I don't think she's an NPC. She's someone who's just been in prison, being a bit careful.
I mean, I agree I don't agree with that comment at all, but I'd be very cautious about making Lucy Connolly a heroine, in the same way I'd be very cautious about making anyone a hero or heroine. But the fact remains that she, in my opinion, was a political prisoner, in the sense that she was imprisoned based upon a political ideology. And I think that's undeniable. It's my opinion once again, but I think you can draw a direct line between all the things that Keir Starmer was saying at the time and to the conviction of Lucy, because it just fit very neatly into what he wanted to see. And he could hold that up and say, look what we've done. Of course, it's backfired. But whether we like it or not, Lucy Connolly is this person. And I think now we have a new conduit which to discuss this debate. And what's really interesting, and of course, this is why the three of us are watching this video with all these lovely people. And Nigel, have one more drink, mate. Don't worry about it. Just one of the reasons we're watching this is because it's a bit of a new dawn. We're getting to hear her version of events now. We've had well over a year, 380 days or plus, of not knowing what she thought, not knowing what went on. And now we have the other side of the debate. And each step forwards kind of squishes everything that went before. So I think this is a very interesting time. I would be careful not to hold her up and hold her too high, just for her own benefit rather than ours. But it's going to be very interesting to see how we proceed from here on in.
And I just want to add to that briefly as well. The thing about NPC or being a normie, I think we have to be very careful about that sort of language. When you're dismissive of people, when you're dismissive of them and their life and their concerns, it is one of the sort of problems of our age, I think, in terms of politics. We often don't try to understand people on their own terms. Lucy Connolly doesn't live the kind of life I do, doesn't have the kind of concerns or interests I do. But I respect the fact that, people all over the country perhaps are more like Lucy Connolly than they are like me. And they're the people we sort of have to persuade in their big battalions if you want to see any kind of change of power through, let's say, the democratic process, about which I acknowledge people are very cynical, understandably so. But we have to be aware of not being too ready to be dismissive of people as they're the thickies, they're stupid, they're normal. We understand so much more than them.
Yeah, that's what got us here, wasn't it? That's exactly why we're here.
Yes,
because of
it started with Brexit. Those Brexit voters are stupid. These people are stupid. Once you say that, as Adam Curtis says, you've lost them forever.
Yes. And the normies to me are the people who say that, though. They're like my football team who all say those kind of things about Brexit voters. And to me, they're the normies. But always challenge with normies. They make the world go around. They churn out the kids, but they aren't half annoying sometimes. Let me add one thing about Paul's comment about whether we should make Lucy a hero. I say yes, because I'm just a bit like that. I'm like, let's just fine. Your terms are acceptable. Let's have it out. That's I've got a bit of that in me, because I'll just give you an example of what I mean. This guy, Jonathan Liss, I know he's a colleague at GB News, which I barely do anymore, but I know you hang out with him a lot, Paul. But he put up a post. You can argue in good faith that the public interest was not best served by sending Connolly to jail. You cannot argue in good faith that she is some kind of free speech martyr or saint. What she said was vile and disgusting in every way. Only a racist would treat her as a hero. So I thought it'd be interesting to just find if it's anything about George Floyd. And of course he said at the time, 2020, a simple but devastating point. The only reason people know about George Floyd is that his murder was filmed. Most state executions, beatings, and abuses of authority, for one obvious reason, aren't. So even though later, and I'm sure he'd disagree with this, but it transpired that Floyd was, almost certainly died of a drug overdose. We don't want to get into all that on this stream, get banned for other reasons. But he's very happy to make Floyd a hero, violent criminal who probably died due to his own unfortunate endeavors rather than the policeman. But he won't make Lucy a hero. So I said, Lucy is far closer to a martyr or saint than actual criminal George Floyd, who almost certainly died due to drugs. The left established these rules, and now they don't like it. Very simple, but these are the rules they established when they made people like that heroes. And now they're really annoyed and threatened, as David Yelland was earlier in this conversation, to see the Sun saying political prisoner, even though they're only quoting Lucy, of course. But it's significant for the Sun on their front page. I was PM's political prisoner for a year. They've been fairly anti-Starmer for quite a long time, the Sun, but that is significant that people that something as mainstream as the Sun and as mainstream now as Alison in the Telegraph are prepared to say, hang on, Lucy is kind of a hero. That is a different world that we're in, but that is the world that has been created.
Yeah, I mean, I want to distance myself from what Jonathan said there, which was that anybody who does make her. By the way, Nigel's losing it. Actually, Nigel, perhaps do put down the drink and go to bed, mate, because I feel like we're now taking Nigel's grandchildren's inheritance.
Is spilling out on the stream.
I'm very grateful, Nigel, but think of the grandchildren, mate, if you've got any. But yeah, I distance myself from his comment about anyone who makes her a heroine is racist. Utterly ridiculous thing to say. Very divisive, as everybody would say at this point. My point really about that is just for her own benefit and for the sanctity of her mind, we probably should treat this more reasonably than just holding her up and saying this person's a hero. Now, she undoubtedly is in some respects, in the sense that she's done something none of us, I'm sure, would like to do, which is go to prison for a year. Although, Nick, you were saying you'd like to spend a year in a women's prison off air, but I think that's a whole different, a whole different fantasy.
It's the type I'm into, Paul. Aggressive, dominant, never know when they've got a makeshift shiv. That's the kind of danger I need to get me off after years of gooning.
Just like dating in London.
Yeah, exactly. That's all I respond to now. I just can't get excited otherwise. How many people have you killed? Less than 6. Not super chats. Nigel says, I'm far too drunk. Good night, guys. Then he says, play up Pompey, which is probably for Paul.
It must be.
Lady Sarcastro, Lucy is freed in the same week that Ricky is found not guilty. How's that for timing? Also, rumors she will meet Trump. Seriously, if that happens, this is truly a psyop. Yeah, interesting. I don't know if that Trump thing's true or not, or Trump's team. I've heard that, and then I've heard it's not true. So would it be interesting, wouldn't it, though? Lucy, great woman, beautiful woman. I don't want to do it again, but and they said she was guilty, but she's a hero. She's totally a hero to the people, and they hate Starmer. Anyway, it was so sad. I did it the other day on the stream, and I nailed it for like a second. The Trump, I nailed it for like I just
very good.
That when I said like totally, I think was the word. I was just like that. I got it there, but only for a second. Then it was gone. Anyway, we're through 17 minutes 43 seconds. The whole thing is 1 hour and 6 minutes, so we might want to crack on.
That statement the police gave to the CPS, your family and solicitor challenged it, and they did in fact
change it.
Yeah. But by that stage, it was
too late. The BBC and the Sky and all of those people, they'd already reported that I hated immigrants and I said they were a danger to the children, and I had several racist tweets on my Twitter, which just wasn't true. No. But the damage had been done by then. So even had I have pled not guilty and gone to trial, my case would have been seriously prejudiced.
Yeah. And that point you're making was that the Prime Minister, who had an opportunity to unite the country.
Exactly. Why did he not just say, look, this is horrendous. We completely understand why you're all upset and angry. We know there's an issue. We know you're all upset about the immigration levels. We are going to work really hard with you all, with the country, and we're going to find a solution. Instead of saying anybody that's upset about this is a far right, terrorist, and you will be dealt with. Yeah. That was basically what he said.
And you also said to the police, I'm just so shocked. People appear to be more bothered by my political views than by children being murdered. Lucy, do you think it suited the authorities to deflect attention away from the savagery of the murder of the children onto people like you?
Yeah, and I stand by that. I cannot for the life of me. I would not be more offended by an offensive tweet than I would be upset about a child losing their life, let alone 3. I don't get that mentality. You can be upset about what I wrote, but I don't understand that you would be more upset about that than the death of children. And that seemed to be the case. They seemed to be more bothered what I'd said than why I'd said it and what led to me saying that.
Lucy, you're a fighter. I know you're a fighter. So people will ask, why did you plead guilty to the offence of distributing material with the intention of stirring up racial hatred? Why not hold your nerve and plead not guilty?
Because I'd been remanded. I didn't know how long. I've met women that have been on remand 2 years and are still waiting for a trial. The courts are so far behind. I'm not sure in my case they would have been in any hurry to get my case to trial. And I have a daughter that needs me. I'm a stay-home mummy. She's had me there her whole life. And all I was thinking, what is my quickest route to her? Yeah. So I felt that I wasn't going to be successful in any way, whatever way I turned in this. So at the time, all I was thinking is, right, they're going to throw the book at me for this. They've made that quite clear. They've done it to other people. What is my quickest route home? And after discussions with my lawyer about how long of a sentence he thought I'd got, this time I'd served remand, he also told me I would get tagged. It was kind of decided that the sentence they were expecting me to get, plus, HDC tag, I'd be home at kind of Christmas time.
Yeah. Your lawyer pretty much said, if you plead guilty, you'll be home by Christmas.
If you don't plead guilty, you'll lose your credit. You'll get your credit if you plead guilty. And so at that point, all I was thinking about was my family, and all I was thinking about was my quickest route home. At that point, I'd passed caring whether I was going to get a criminal record or that didn't matter anymore. All I was thinking about is how I was going to get home to my child. I've lost one child. When I don't want to be away from her, I can't get that time back.
I think what people don't understand is that you're not just waiting for this stuff to unfold. You're in prison, right? Which is, for someone like you, this is a very alien, scary environment, and you're not able to get lots of the good advice that people on the outside, a number of barristers were saying to Ray, your husband, tell Lucy she mustn't plead guilty. But you were looking around this prison, presumably thinking, oh my God, I could be in here for 2 years waiting for trial.
Yeah. And I'm thinking, oh, she'll be 15 by the time I'm out. And, and that's all that was all that was ever going through. The dog will be dead by the time I get home. All this crazy stuff was going through my head. I can't be away from home that long. I need to be with my family. So by the time it got to that point, I really didn't care it got to the point where I actually didn't care what I was pleading. I just wanted to be home with my family, and we spoke about it, and that seemed the quickest route home.
So we subsequently found out that Lord Hermer, who's the Attorney General, he had to approve your prosecution. You appear to have pleaded guilty to a higher charge, to the 1A, which was inciting serious violence. I'll ask you about that in a minute. But you've got Lord Hermer, Starmer, and other, former Director of Public Prosecutions. To what extent do you think this whole denied bail rapidly shunted along this conveyor belt towards a guilty plea? Is there an element of coercion of people?
Absolutely. Everybody is entitled to a fair trial. Everybody, the justice system should serve everybody the same, but it doesn't. We didn't get all the same rights. Vicky Jones is a perfect example of that. He did say something violent. He did say something he shouldn't have said. As I've said, do I think he should have gone to prison? Absolutely not. But he was, bailed. I wasn't. So he was able to sit round a table. And Ray has always maintained to me, used to say, Lucy, if you were able to sit round a table with the people that I'm able to sit round, you would never have gone guilty. And we had several arguments, because I used to say to him, well, it's all well for you to say this to me, but you're not the one sitting in prison away from our child. I am. So, and if Ray had his own way.
Very, very quickly, because I don't want to spoil the rhythm here. Again, this is where the two-tier business comes in. There is a direct link between what Keir Starmer said 9 days before she was arrested, which was that people will be held on remand. Okay, she was not given bail. You get 2 attempts at bail, both failed. There was no chance for her. There was some dark magic going on in the background. This was very different for Ricky Jones. And I think this element here is the most sinister element of the whole thing for me, because she just was treated so differently. That's how you can directly link it to Starmer. And whilst he doesn't have complete control over the judiciary, and it is separate, quite clearly that's not true.
Yeah, and a couple of things in the chat. Even though I only should really read the paid ones, but I'm too nice. And someone... Martin, is it pleaded guilty or pled guilty? A pedant asked. Well, my understanding is it's pleaded, and people have been corrected for saying pled, but I don't know if that's how true it is. And one other thing, Semiosphere, I think it was, who said, am I actually watching a video of people watching a video? This is like high level meta watching stuff, like hanging out with my mates, but not getting to participate. But some people said you can participate. Also, it's an extremely time honored internet format that people have made millions with. So it's not like we've, you know what I mean? Just inventing this. It's anyway. It's reaction streams. What we'll do soon is start playing FIFA, and that's when the big money really comes in.
It won't if I play it.
We'll just be playing FIFA, and then Sam will stop. Quick note on Machiavelli. Get in 1-0, and then stuff like that.
I would have never have gone guilty. Because he was obviously speaking to Adam and lawyers and things behind the scene, but I wasn't able to do that. I was just going on secondhand information. plus what my, you know, lawyer was saying to me at the time, and it was conflicting information, you know, so I didn't have that opportunity.
Ray said something very sad to me. Lucy basically had to admit she was the person she was the opposite of. Now, I know you and your two sisters were raised by your lovely mum, who's just through there in the kitchen. And she described herself to me as old-fashioned Labour. And you and the other girls were brought up to be very much non-racist.
Absolutely.
And was it painful to be demonised as Tory councillor's racist wife?
Absolutely. I don't want to walk down the street and people think I'm a racist. Being a racist is not a good trait. You know, we shouldn't be judging people by the colour of the skin, their religious, the creed, any of that. We judge people on who they are, the merit of who they are. We've never been brought up to, you know, and as I've said many a time, I've looked after many a children that are from all over the place, and I've quite literally treated them as I treat my own children and loved them and protected them like I do my own. It doesn't matter where they come from; they're children.
No. So it was very stinging. Do you think that being Tory councillor's wife was different from Ricky Jones' Labour councillor?
Well, I might change my name to Deedpole, to be honest, to Tory councillor's wife. I'm sick of hearing it. And it's really, what's the word? You know, like, we're so like women and their own people now, and feminism and all of this. Why am I being linked to him? He did nothing wrong. He didn't even know I'd sent that tweet. No. Why is he being demonised? Why is any politics coming into it? I said what I said through anger and, you know, being upset. Nothing to do with politics. I would have said the same if, you know, if another government was in power. And let's not forget they actually were. There was another government in power when, you know, the lead up to this and the failings to this case. So it wasn't, you know, so it wasn't a case of it's, you know, it's all Labour's fault. It's not.
But I think, would there be an element?
Good point about the Uniparty, and also about being called racist, because what she didn't say there was, never mind that she isn't. It's just a terrible label in this society. It just means you're a heretic and you're in danger, basically. But the other thing I was going to comment, I've suddenly forgotten the third thing. I got too cocky.
Well, I've got a comment. I mean, the idea that I understand why she's saying it, and understand why people say it. But the idea that people are brought up non-racist is kind of mental, because no one sort of sits down with their nan and they say, remember, when you go out there today, don't be racist. You know, oh fuck yeah.
Well, I'm from the north, so it was the opposite.
Yeah, exactly. Get
your racism in, lad.
It's not. I guess it's kind of racist to actively be thinking about being non-racist. If you get up every morning, you think, right, Paul. Okay,
hold it together, mate.
You can do this. They are the same as us. This is not what happens, is it?
No. Can I just say one quick thing on that, because I remembered it. She was talking about feminism and all that. Remember when it was believe all women? That was quite recent, wasn't it? Now you've got lefties online saying, evil, racist, devil woman. Yes, she said she didn't understand the plea, but she totally did. Why are you believing this stupid bitch? That's basically what half the left are saying now. It's like, oh, that was believe all women. That was quick. Anyway, just a little satirical point.
That the media quite enjoyed the fact that Ray was a Tory councillor.
Absolutely. Completely. I just, as I say, I'll never understand why I got the airtime that I did. I remember when I put my plea in and I was on Video Link, and obviously it's just down the corridor from where the house block is at the prison, so it's not a long walk, just walk across. And I'd put my plea in, I'd left, I'd gone back to my room, Sky News was on, breaking news, Lucy Connolly, and my face was all over the news, and I was like, I don't get it. And my lawyer said, I've never seen so many press at a plea hearing or a sentencing hearing. He says, I don't understand. I don't get it. I don't think I will ever understand why I was made so much bigger than anybody else that were involved.
Pause.
In anything to do with the Southport, be it online, be it.
Just once more again, this kind of performance of bafflement at the idea of ordinary people being made into political actors, perhaps against their will and perhaps unfamiliar to them. But I just think that's the kind of watershed of naivety that Paul's referring to, that, you hopefully this sinks in at this point, that
Yeah, because all the things she says she doesn't understand, she will definitely understand by now.
Yeah, but
just
it's not terrible to frame it, to sort of frame it as if we were in a sane world, though, and to expose the absurdity of it.
Yeah, I think that's important. A lot of this is building the if you imagine these are the first interviews, this actually was well done, Alison, by the way. This was the first interview, and I think it's incredibly important at this point to build the context and the framework around the discussion should take place from Lucy's perspective, but also it gives a sense of Lucy. What Lucy comes across here, and we'll see this more and more as we go through the interview, is she's just normal. Okay, like there's not, I mean, I don't think you can define normal, but
average,
if you were,
without being disparaging about that.
Exactly. She fits very neatly into that, whatever that space looks like, and I think that's important for everybody to understand. And I think this is going to be huge in the sense that it's going to resonate with far more people than Keir Starmer and his lackeys can ever resonate with, and I think this is going to become incredibly important.
And she's being framed in such a way that she's ready for Nigel Farage to scoop up as a prime example of unjust treatment of people who are sort of paying absolute homage to all the conventional nostrums of being a liberal Britain, judging people by the content of their character, etc., etc.
Yeah. Yes, Farage. A lot of people say she was racist. I don't believe that for one second. I'll confess I have a fantasy sometimes of, like, you're talking about being a normal person, of Lucy versus me definitely not being one. Of the police come around for some minor infraction, and I just, like, they've just entered a world of pain, and I just sort of explain to them the flaws in their own ideology. I point out that I'm on
quoting Nietzsche.
Yeah, exactly. I point out I'm on GB News, and I'm mates with actually 3 peers in the House of Lords now who can help me. Lord Young, Baroness Fox, and Lord Frost. I'll be like, and just laying all that out there and just watching their faces, they realize they've just ever come across someone you shouldn't have fucked with. You know, like Clint Eastwood. Of course, it won't go like this. Probably it'll just be terrible. I'll drop my phone. It'll be out of storage. I won't be able to film them. Toby will hang up and say, "Deal with it yourself," and I'll probably be I'll be in prison by the end of the day. But in my mind, it's like, ever come across somebody? Because I'm the worst person to come across, because like this is going on my Twitter, it's going on Lotus Eaters, it's going on GB News. I'm going to call Lord Young. You know, it's just like, in reality,
show them a skin blemishment that you'd found that day. Look at this. I've been looking at this all day, and just get every police officer to check to see if it's normal in some way.
But don't you think? I mean, that is an event. We have a weird thing where in the media where we have this slight protection of we're out there all the time saying terrible things, and in a way it's a weird protection, because if someone does come up, it's like, oh, we have the expertise and the context. I don't know if it actually helps, but and it's a rough world. But like a normal person, they always get dragged in. They go, oh, I didn't realize this and that. It's almost like we're fighting it every day. It's almost like go to the gym to build up, like they've suddenly in a fight that they don't understand, whereas we've been training for it. But then again, it can go sideways for anyone in this anarcho tyranny. Mighty Balzac, good name, clearly a reference to Honoré de Balzac and no kind of pun. Says
nothing testicular.
Doesn't low mean lion in ye old English? That's interesting. And Kate Ashley just simply says £5, which is my favorite. Just the money,
Straight
and
to the point.
And Wenders says, I love Nick's fantasies, and also puts in a super chat. And that could have so many meanings. But it was
paying
about
for Nick's fantasies is next level disturbing.
There will be a special private live stream later for those subscribers who wish to hear more.
Just Nick and Wenders.
Top fans. All right.
And there's, like people have pointed out, there's still lots of people in prison that put stuff online that absolutely shouldn't be there either. These people are not criminals.
Perhaps it was the opportunity to use the very attractive police mugshot of you.
Oh, yes, that one. I've never forgiven anybody that ever showed that mugshot.
No, I know. You've said this to me. So let's go to the sentencing. Justice Melbourne Inman was very harsh in his remarks about you, and some people would say quite political. He said it's the strength of our society that it is both diverse and inclusive. There's always a very small minority of people who seek an excuse to use violence and disorder, causing injury, damage, loss, and fear to wholly innocent members of the public. And sentences for those who incite racial hatred and disharmony in our society are intended to both punish and deter. Now, I've read
I mean, there it is. I mean, case closed, Your Honour. I know you're the judge, but it's my case that's closed because you've made an incredibly political statement saying diversity is a strength. And then you said, and people will be used as an example. I mean, isn't that just as clear as it could be? You will be an example for the Liberal regime, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly that.
I thought everyone had gone then, but that's basically the judge's comment. I almost think we should go back. In fact, I am going to go back. I want to make it very clear. Let me have a look.
And sentences for those who are in.
So listen to what the judge said.
There was a very small minority. It's his remarks about you, and some people would say quite political. He said it's the strength of our society that it is both diverse and inclusive. There was a very small minority of people who seek an excuse to use violence and disorder, causing injury, damage, loss, and fear to wholly innocent members of the public.
Probably
and
not related.
Sentences for those who incite racial hatred and disharmony in our society are intended to both punish and deter. Now, I've read...
Yeah, intended to both. So diversity is a strength. Those who defy this political formula, doctrine, whatever you want to call it, will be held up as an example to punish and deter. I mean, it's clear as day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you could again, this would be a great clip for the Dan Hodges of this world. A fair play to him for coming out and sharing his opinion. He keeps doing it, irrespective of how bad they are. Good on you, Dan. But it's so undeniable to me, to the point that I'm starting to sort of, where we get into this kind of cognitive dissonance where it's like, am I the one losing my mind here? Because quite clearly, it's you can't say categorically with 100% proof and all of that sort of stuff, because none of us have that proof. But it's very, 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 very strong circumstantial evidence that what Keir Starmer was saying correlates directly to what was happening within the ground policing and the judiciary and the law system, and that proves it. I think without doubt, but this is opinion.
Yeah, satirical opinion. And Proper Horror Show, thanks for the super chat. Evening, I'll watch tomorrow. Chat, do chuck a few quid Nick's way. This is quality entertainment. Netflix won't give you this high quality racism.
Excellent.
Thank you very much. Clearly all satire. But yes, and by the way, any super chats you give have to be divided. Well, 70%. YouTube takes a cut, so you only get 70%, then divided 3 ways. So barely enough for Paul's little rashers, which are his pigs. So yeah, chuck that in. And yeah, I mean, Ed Dutton saying, this is slightly unrelated, but it's really kicking off out there. I don't know. It's kicking off. I can't probably talk about it on the stream, but there was rumors of things being thrown at the flag people today. And I don't know. This is the backdrop upon which we do this interview. But
just one last thing. I just want to say the name Justice Melbourne Inman.
See, what the fuck was that?
It's a confection of the very highest camp, yes.
Yeah, is that really the name? I mean, Melbourne. I thought
Melbourne Inman.
Oh, I thought, I heard a different name. Is that the name?
Yeah, there was a sort of an Asian name I heard.
Yes, I heard that as well.
The trial, but I'll take it as read that it was Melbourne.
Melbourne.
Go back to Australia.
A lot about the remarks and the charges. The judge didn't give much, if any, weight to your mitigations. So you were of previous good character. You had a pile of wonderful references from immigrant parents saying Lucy's the kindest British person we've met. She's gone the extra mile for us, and we're from Nigeria, Bangladesh. And you had lost a child of your own in 2011 due to medical neglect, which had left you with post-traumatic stress disorder. Lucy, how did you feel when Justice Inman said 31 months custodial sentence?
I was really shocked. I was not expecting, like, the discussions we'd had, it was a high sentence, and obviously I'd pleaded the guilty plea to get my 25% off. And he said, if you'd have gone guilty and you'd have been found, if you'd have gone not guilty and been found guilty at trial, you would have got this. So I'm going to start at this point. Surely that's the whole point of going guilty, though, isn't it? So that you don't get to trial and it works in your favour. but it didn't work in my favour because he just went from that starting point anyway.
Yeah.
And then, you know, brought it down but so technically I got 4 years, I can't exactly remember. And I'm not going to lie, as soon as he started with his speech, my kind of eyes rolled to the back of my head and I thought, oh, here we go. Straight out of Starmer's mouth. That's what I thought when he started speaking.
So I'm going to be made an example of.
Yeah, I knew that. And to be honest, I didn't hear a lot of what he said. And I tell you another really bizarre thing about that situation. I've never seen Judge Inham. So when the camera was set up in the court, I was facing the legal team and the judge was coming in and out, and I've never laid eyes on him. So when he was saying all of this, he never looked me in the face. And I find that quite, you know, if you're sentencing somebody, surely you look at them and you say, you've done this is da-da-da-da-da, you're having this. He didn't. I found that really quite strange that the camera was turned away. I'd never set eyes on him. He could probably obviously see me, I'm assuming. But when he read that out, he wasn't talking to me because I couldn't see him.
He knew you had a 12-year-old daughter.
He did.
Lucy, I want to talk about Harry because I do feel he's a big part of this story. Harry was your son, your little boy, just 19 months old when he died after a series of medical mishaps, to say the least. What was he like?
Oh, he was a dream. He was, didn't sleep, but he was always so happy, and that he really was a joy. I mean, both our kids were actually, when that, you know, they were both really happy, you know, independent babies and toddlers, and you know, he just loved life. Everything was great to him. You know, he was like the happiest little thing, and he brought everyone so much joy. He never cried. Had the odd tantrum, I guess, but yeah, he was a good boy.
He became very ill, and I understand you took him to the hospital on 5 successive days. Doctors said that you were overbearing.
Just said it was a tummy bug and I was wrong, and he'd be fine. Take him home, give him juice. He's not that ill.
And what, on the 5th successive day you took him home, and Ray said you woke up in the small hours, and what had happened then?
He'd passed away. Ray found him, and then from there really. So he was in our room on a mattress next to the bed because obviously he'd been so poorly, and I didn't want him in his own room because he was being sick and stuff as well. So Ray woke up to check on him, and he'd passed away, and I think he'd been gone a while.
Ray said that Ray said he hasn't been able to cry since, except he cried once for you. And Ray said, I shouldn't be getting upset. Ray said that you were on the phone to the 999 911 and you were screaming at him to do CPR on the baby.
Yeah, because that's what it was too late, and he knew it. Ray had got him, so he knew it was too late. But I wanted them to try. I wanted him to try, you know. So.
Yeah. And obviously that was an immense shock from which neither of you will ever really recover. How often do you think about Harry?
Oh, every day. And then some days I have this panic where I think I haven't thought of him that day, but then I go, oh yeah, I have, because I thought about him when, when I was in prison, all my photos on the wall, there were just as many of him as there was, my daughter and my family and all of that. You've been to our house. He's still very much a part of our house and a part of our life.
He's everywhere. His lovely face. Your mum said to me, Lucy really proved her mettle after Harry died. She said she had to fight for him to get the truth about why he died, because the truth never would have come out because the hospital wanted to brush it under the carpet, saying it's just one of those things, babies do die. Now, literally within 48 hours of Harry's death, you were into the hospital to demand his notes because you thought they might try to destroy them. And you said to your parents, I will bloody well prove I'm right and the doctors were wrong. And your mum said she did. So you had years of tribunals.
Yeah, it was about a year. I knew that he shouldn't be dead. I knew that he was iller than what they thought he was, and I knew that he could. I just knew that he could have been saved had they have listened and had he have had the right treatment.
Mainly he was
dehydrated and kidney failure. No, nobody should be dying in this day and age of those things. They're really easily rectifiable. And I just knew, and they were really cagey. You know, the very first people that contacted us after he died was the litigation team. Well, that ring alarm bell straight away, doesn't it? You know, why are you contacting me? But obviously they've done nothing wrong at this point, and they maintained that, you know, they did everything right. They followed nice guidelines. They did this, they did that. And all I wanted to know was how it happened. I know that not for 1 minute those doctors thought, oh, let's kill this baby this week. Of course they didn't. But the fact of the matter is their failures did kill him. So instead of opening up a proper investigation and saying, do you know what, we are going to find out what happened, A, to give you some peace and some answers, and B, to make sure this never happens again. Yeah. But no, they don't. They deny till they die, don't say anything. We did everything right. We're getting independent reports to say that, you know, we're brilliant, and everybody knew that wasn't the case. So it wasn't until inquest, they maintained this all the way along. And then when we got to inquest, it was, you know, I had a really good lawyer. Yeah. He was a bit priceless. He was brilliant. And the coroner's independent expert, a doctor from Leicester, listened to the evidence, and he had nothing but contempt for those doctors afterwards. And she obviously ruled about 13 failures and 4 windows of lost opportunity to save him. Yeah. And then the hospital held their hands up and apologised. But they hadn't done until then. And had I not fought so hard, I probably would never have had those answers, because they didn't volunteer them.
And you were at by the end of the case, you were quite heavily pregnant.
Yeah, with so his inquest was like kind of, I think, end of April, and she was due in July.
Mm-hmm. So she was a rainbow baby.
She was a rainbow baby. She's my rainbow baby.
She's a rainbow baby. How old would Harry be now?
He'd be 16 in September. It'd be his 16th this year.
Wow. When you called me from prison, you said, yeah, some days it's bad and I sob, other days I laugh because it's so ridiculous. But remember, Alison, the worst thing in the world has already happened to me. Did Harry help you to endure this ordeal?
I just think that I thought to myself, and Ray as well, that we've been through worse. I mean, being in prison was horrific. This whole thing is horrific, but it's not, doesn't come close to losing a child, not even close. So as long as she was okay and everyone else is okay, we can fix this. We can come out of this. And when you lose a child, you can't fix that.
No, that's forever.
That's forever. This isn't forever. It's just a small, you know.
So you're taken from the court after this deafening sentence in a prison van.
Can we just pause there, guys?
Peterborough.
Sorry, that obviously that was harrowing. So I wanted to make sure that everybody got to watch that in its entirety. And you know, I don't want anyone to be cynical really about that. I think it's incredibly important to bear in mind perhaps what Lucy's mindset may have been. You know, this wasn't some sort of X Factor moment where she's pleading for people to vote for her because of this terrible backstory. This is genuinely, you can see just from the way she was talking, this is generally something that's incredibly sad. And obviously it's very sad. And it was a difficult watch. And the reason I think we should just very briefly talk about it is because we've got lots of cases where, you know, anecdotally, not just anecdotally, actually, physical evidential cases where, you know, we've not been able to deport people because, you know, people that have done very nasty things on the basis, you know, of course, the famous story because their child didn't like, you know, the country they're being deported to didn't like their chicken nuggets. And we got this, and that was taken into consideration. Quite clearly, no judge or any part of the judiciary system took into account this backstory from Lucy, because as cynical as you could possibly be about this, it's still important to bear in mind this would have created part of her emotional, visceral reaction to what went on at Southport. And it doesn't justify the comments, but it gives you some understanding of perhaps where that anger come from, and more so maybe than the rest of us. So I think it's really important just for people to hear Lucy talk about this, because you know, I can't speak for you, Simon, because we haven't done this before, but Nick and I we do a podcast called Go Mental, and we talk about the things that affect us in our lives. And I think human nature is probably the one thing that does bring us all together. And I'd want, I wouldn't want to meet the judge that sat in front of that story and didn't see that could have some impact on Lucy's behaviour from now on forever. Not just on the basis that she's lost a child, which in itself is incredibly tragic, but the injustice of it and the way that she had to fight just to prove that something wasn't right. Because the default position is the mum's talking shit, she's overreacting, and it's just one of those things. Well, it wasn't, was it?
Yeah.
And neither is this.
Well, we've got the ECHR. She has a right to a family life. Oh, no, that suddenly doesn't apply.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, Paul. Great points. When you're the friend of the regime, it's, oh, I'm Ricky Jones, I've got ADHD. Oh, I'm random foreigner. My culture is different, and I couldn't be expected to understand because it's in my culture. We get to treat women like this, etc. It's like, and children. Yeah, it's disgusting. But of course, yeah, when you're not the friend of the regime, no, none of that matters. That's just playing the mental health card, all that stuff that she was accused of. And yeah, appalling.
It does interest me about this case that the categorization, she was put as a category B prisoner, and I've just been looking today at categories on the Howard League for Penal Reform website. Your category A prisoners, they're your Hannibal Lecters, you're irreconcilably violent, nasty people who need to be locked up. Now, your category B prisoners, it's the largest category of people in prison. These tend to be people who are sort of on remand, waiting trial, or short sentences, quote, short sentences, so to speak. But they're the most overcrowded kinds of prisons. They tend to be people where they don't think they're the worst of the worst, but one of the conditions is they have to be put in a place where it's going to be reasonably difficult for them to escape. Now, someone like Lucy Connolly, to me, doesn't present exactly with the kind of threat risk that means that she'd have to be locked up. I mean, I knew someone years ago who committed an offence, and he was sentenced to a category D prison, which is the so-called open prisons, where it's fairly lax. I mean, you could, in theory, walk out, but and there's sort of, you're given leave to go home at weekends, things like that. But it's fairly mild. And it surprised me that she wouldn't have been a category D prisoner, because she does, as I say, she doesn't have a threat profile that you would think warrants being in a sort of security prison like a category B. But one of the things I looked at today was with category B prisoners, if their sentence is 12 months or less, there's an obligation on the penal system to look at downgrading them to a category D as soon as possible. So putting them in the lower risk of flight environment if they're kind of assessed to be reasonably suitable for that. And you'd think someone like her was, especially with, as Paul's saying, the mitigating factor of quite an emotionally scarred personal history as well, and without a sort of pattern of offending or anything that you would think would warrant her being locked up permanently. But if you've got a sentence over 12 months, that doesn't apply. So it's kind of handy that they sentence her to be locked up for longer.
Whenever I'm going through this in my head as I hear you talk. There are some really good points, Simon. I just think to myself, first things first, this is a crime that could not have been committed pre about 2008. It just was impossible, didn't exist. The mechanism to commit the crime wasn't available, i.e. social media, Twitter, etc. The idea, if we went back to that point and said that someone could be in prison for something they put on there, we would think was mental. Yeah. And we are only maybe 15 to 20 years from that point. Mm-hmm. And we are talking about someone being a category B prisoner because of what they wrote on a message board, essentially, on a social media platform. And as ghastly as some people might find what she wrote, quite clearly, it's the type of vitriol that people spout when they're very angry. People have said awful things to people they love when they're very angry. It's momentary. And she went and calmed down, and she walked her dog and decided, do you know what? No, that's too much. I'm probably going to get myself in trouble for that. I don't really believe that, and took it down. Where has reason gone? Where has tolerance gone? The whole idea of this multicultural system is that it's supposed to be built on tolerance, which, of course, I should imagine all three of us and nearly everybody watching this thinks it's absolute horse poo. But it's how have we got to a point where we've got a top journalist in the UK interviewing a mum after she spent over a year in prison for writing something on an electronic message board that really is something and nothing, genuinely is something and nothing. I'd debate Narinda over this on live TV, absolutely no problem whatsoever. It is something and nothing. It's not racist.
Let me read a little bit maybe from this article then, just on this point from Alison's piece about the mistreatment of Lucy. So she ends up in this worst part of the prison, even called the Bronx, colloquially. Lucy, don't let the bastards get to you. One Bronx toughie arrived with a radio for Lucy and yelled at an officer to open the door and give it to her. He did so without demur. A shattered Connolly was told that she was on 23-hour lockdown. That means being confined to a boiling hot, stultifying, curtainless cell for 23 hours a day. You've got 15 minutes exercise, an officer said. I've got an hour, Lucy replied, asking to see a copy of the prison rules. Why the F have they put you on here in this wing, Lucy? Her neighbor in the next cell demanded. We're the ones they can't do nothing with. So, like, she was in with the people who, have to be in there because their behavior is like out of control. But they backed her and said, just instinctively realizing that she was a mistreated underdog. The 42-year-old was given 14 days on basics, no TV, no privileges. She can't even go down to the canteen to have her meals. Food is brought to her cell. You got 14 days on basics, Lucy. That's insane, one of the Bronx girls marveled. Funny how the asylum inmates are saner than the warders, isn't it? There you go. So I just thought I'd read that.
Yeah, it's incredible. Just a moment's reflection there. It's subtly mental.
Yeah, but it's all about beefing up the evidence, as you said, with the police. Yeah. They put a hatchet on her character. And again, one of the problems of a kind of managerial regime that we live under these days, and we all know it from if you've worked in institutions and public service jobs. I worked in the NHS for a period, so I saw that sort of regime up close. One of the things that is very useful for management is to be able to wield the tool, the threat of disciplinary measures over you. And one of the ways those things get constructed is by management noting down episodes and then framing them as a, quote, pattern of behavior later on when they want to put you under some sort of pressure, or they want to put you through a disciplinary process. They can point to certain things. And it seems that she's kind of been railroaded into situations that sort of beg the question. Someone might say, oh, well, why was she put in the sort of the higher security part of the prison? She must have done something awful. So it all kind of lends a sort of, you're confecting an air of danger about the person just by putting them through these designations and processes that then add up to sort of looking like something later, which you can then use to sort of put them under pressure.
Yeah, great point. But because very quickly, Nick, the whispers around the bazaars while she was in prison was that she had this huge track record of saying all sorts of nasties online. One of the things we passed over it earlier on, she's denied all that entirely, and nobody's ever. I haven't seen this, so I could be left with egg on my face here, but I haven't seen anyone present any evidence of like all sorts of nasties that she said previously. And it's like they had to this beefing up again. It's building the narrative. It's that if you question it, we'll be able to point to one or two other things, by the way.
Yeah. And they may be fairly Sorry, Nick, you go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, you normally get like a whole list of terrible things they've said, don't you, on Twitter, but I haven't seen any others, like you say. So she was said to be quite forthright, but we haven't seen any of that. But the other thing on Simon's point is, and once you're in that, maybe this is obvious, but once you're in that sort of harsher wing of the prison, and they're goading you, putting you in jail in the cell for 23 hours and so on. They're trying to get you to do more so that they can then say, oh, look, this is how she behaved in prison and so on. Don't you think they were, that sort of is goading someone into a reaction?
Yeah.
Potentially. And the Haberman says, I'm working for a rich woman who thought the jogging policewoman entrapment debacle was a positive thing. She can pay for this message. Great stream. Nice. I've forgotten what was the jogging policewoman entrapment debacle?
The thing last week where they sent these two police ladies out in tight leggings to go jogging along.
Oh, yeah, the catcalling.
Entrapment, basically.
Oh, yeah, the catcalling, entrapment, jogging women. Oh, yeah, we're women in tight clothing jogging along. Don't notice us. Okay, or you'll go to prison. Oh, I see. Interesting. Fascinating. Not that I can't call jogging women, by the way.
Yeah,
usually because I'm jogging. Usually because I'm jogging myself and too out of breath. I actually went for a run. I don't even know if it was today or yesterday. That scares me. It was yesterday. I did Lotus Eaters 2 shows, got back, went for a run straight after that, and it was hard. I must say, I'm overweight, and I don't know if it's my age or my weight, but it's getting harder. I'm trying to get back in. Trying to get back ready for the football season. Everything, Paul. I'm trying to. I'm excited by anarcho tyranny. I say it again, and the chat can drink. They all drink when I say anarcho tyranny.
I know, I saw that. Yeah,
and they drink when Simon says Machiavellian, and when Paul says proper geezer. Just kidding.
I haven't said that once. What do I say? What do I say regularly without realizing?
I don't know. Actually, that's a good point.
When I was first on the telly box, someone used to point out every time I said "however." And I've basically
that's a tough one though, because that's like the or something.
Yeah, I know, and I've stopped using "however" ever since. I mean, I've never met this guy. I had like 4 followers, and he went, "You say however a lot," and I stopped like a din.
Paul's now saying, on the contrary, on the other hand, conversely, he's got a whole range of
naivete. I said instead of naivete,
irregardless, nonetheless, but good old but.
Maybe I'll squeeze in a naivete every now and again, because I did that just for that comic effect earlier, by the way, guys. I don't.
It's dead sophisticated that you use the French word like that, by the way.
Thank you very much. I just felt I should to fit in.
There is another N word you say a lot, Paul, but I don't want to call it out on this stream.
That's for the paid subscribers.
Yeah, it's Nadir. Paul is a fan of words like that, meaning low point when he's referring to our culture. All right. Nick rapping. Anyway, hey guys, let's not too carried away with my self-deprecation about my running. Okay, let's all calm down. All right, I did go to the gym Sunday, Monday, and run Tuesday, and run Friday, and my best bench is 85 for 3. So let's all chill out. I do this where I like get self-deprecating on the fitness, then they sort of all weigh in. Or I get this.
They see it as you leaving the door ajar.
Yeah, and then I have to like build it back up again.
Yeah.
I mean, I can do 3 miles in a reasonable time. I just noticed when you not done it for a bit, it's like, oh, I've never done this. Anyway, let's.
You're chasing. If you're running away from asylum seekers in Tufnell Park at midnight, you've actually broken the 3 minutes, haven't you?
That's true. Actually, to be fair to me, I thought, I'm done for this run today. I'll just do a little quick sprint at the end, and that sprint became the last like half mile. I sort of had a second wind. But then I thought, is this going to be like taking out of me tomorrow? Is my body going, okay, Nick, this is your survival juice, but tomorrow you'll be broken. But I'm actually okay.
Survival juice.
I bought a massage gun, and that's a game changer.
Jesus, wet.
Yeah,
this is innuendo city now.
They're only 25 quid. I found that I was trying to do lunges. This is getting worse. I was trying to do lunges in the gym, and I was in so much pain, just my thigh. Anyway, get a massage gun, guys.
Oh, it's all thighs and lunges and massage guns now. It's like,
well, you're mocking me, but we've just got another super chat out of this.
Oh,
T-Dog. I think Hi-Ho Kermit brought up a good point. What about the other Lucy from the NHS? I know Hitchens has championed her course. Thanks for the content. Oh, yeah, I've never really followed her case. It's either the biggest travesty of justice or just bad. I'm a normie on that. I've never covered it.
Yeah, I had to talk about it the other day without ever thinking about it as well. And
that's annoying.
Yeah, I mean, you can talk about it without. I just took a different angle. However,
can I just allude to the comment of Zulu20 in the chat, who says, "I'd pay to watch Dixon Cox put Narinda through her paces in a debate with Simon watching from a chair." So I'd be in the sort of debate cuck chair, would I?
That is the comment of the night.
Great.
Unfortunately, it's not a paid one, but that is it's so funny. I'm going to let you off.
Send in money, Zulu20, to pay for that comment.
To pay for the comment.
Why has Simon got a watch on?
Narinda is quite hot. I'm not trying to be sexy. She's quite hot. The problem is everything she says is terrible. Yes. But then again, isn't that the conundrum of all women? Anyway, someone has given a super sticker. Kane Dingle Boxing. Thank you for that. I don't even know what a super sticker is, but thank you. Someone's Hi-Ho Kermit's a bit disgusted by some of that. You're right. We're scraping the barrel now. Let's get back to the serious content.
Sorry, that'd be me. This doesn't normally happen on the Saturday stream when it's not Paul, does it?
Totally Paul. But let's not pause for a second. I need to go and grab my drink. All right, let's carry on.
Normally end up in jail. what were your initial impressions of being inside?
Actually, I was terrified when I went there, and I was sobbing. And as soon as I walked in the door, they were like, no, don't cry. The SO that works on reception is lovely. And he's like, please don't cry. It's not as bad. It's not what you think here. It's not what you think. And I was like, oh. Like, and then I kind of walked in and I was just like, oh, it looks more like a university than a prison. It wasn't very prison-like when you first walk into reception and stuff. And then I met this lovely officer, Lel, and I was just hysterical. She's like, calm down. What did you do? And I told her, and she was just like, oh. She was very like, oh.
So I should say that a lot of what you call the girls, the other prisoners, when you told them that you were in for a tweet, what did they say?
They didn't believe me. Nobody believed me. And part of me is a little part of me is glad that the press picked it up and went so heavy on it, because in prison, if people don't believe you and what you're in for, you can imagine what you get branded as.
Right.
So if you say you're in for something quite unbelievable, people say, no, there must be this, that, or the other. And they're just trying to hide what they really are. And, I've seen other girls have to get their paperwork out and show other girls, what they're in for, because they're like, oh no, they must be this, they must be that. Yeah. And nobody wants to be punished as that. It's not funny, but that's one thing people aren't very forgiving about in prison. And I don't blame them.
So the girls thought you were pretty posh at first.
They did. Yeah. It did. Yeah. But they were, even when I went back to Peterborough in June, some of the girls that I'd never met before, they were like, you're really down to earth. And I just laughed and I said, what was you expecting? Because the press has just built up this Tory wife, this, that, the other. And, you must be rich, you must be posh, you must come, been born with a silver spoon in your mouth. And, and I really did my best to try and not to judge these girls, because some of their stories are pretty horrific and a lot of them shouldn't be in there themselves.
And you quite rapidly took quite a few under your wing.
I did.
Yeah. And Ray said to me, I think one of my favourite lines from the whole story was when Ray said, I can't understand why the prison doesn't want to get rid of Lucy, because she writes all the letters of complaints for the other girls. You were like citizens.
Yeah, some of these girls love them. They're not very good at articulating themselves, and sometimes you get very angry in prison because sometimes you feel like you're banging your head against a brick wall. Life doesn't work the same in prison. Everything's so slow. You need something doing, and it's it takes forever. And then if you're not very good at reading and writing, you're going to struggle to write a complaint or write a letter to the judge or write a letter to your housing people. So I helped a lot of people do things like that and wrote letters for them. And
okay, two things. One, that noise is them, not us. Two, that is exactly what I would end up doing in prison. As soon as she said that, I was like, yeah, that is me. That has always sort of been. It hasn't come up for a while, actually, probably because I hang out with like all these people. Like Carl Benjamin doesn't need me to write a letter, but I used to have like people who were dyslexic and things like that in comedy as well, and all sorts of people who asked me to write things. Who was it? Oh, yeah, there was once a comedian who was being attacked because they said he was stealing jokes. He was just a new comedian. He just started. He didn't really understand how it all worked. But he wasn't. He literally was sort of semi-literate, really, in English. And I was actually helping him defend himself online, writing his posts for him. This is the kind of thing I don't say this to big myself up. I've just remembered that then. But that is the kind of thing and that's how I'd end up sort of, not getting hopefully shivved and killed, is that I would help people with in it, would you help us with this letter? And I'd help them with their letters and stuff. So maybe that's a kind of narcissistic projection into the story, but that is sort of how I look at the world generally. But it was a touching. Anyway, back to Lucy. It was a touching story that she would help the other prisoners.
Yeah,
I felt. I made it about me. Sorry, guys. It's kind of 40% narcissism. If we're talking about Machiavellianism, there's a thing called the dark triad test. And I also just wanted to speak just to show I was back from getting my drink and having a slash, just to alert the lads. So I just wanted to say something, but it just reminds me of the dark triad test, Machiavellianism, psychopathy, and narcissism. I did get like 40% narcissism, but still lower than the average, and I still get lighter than the average person. Simon came out as a total psychopath. We should do that on Dixon Cots Go Mental. We're going to do.
I've not done it yet, Nick.
Oh, I've not done it. It's so
you
good.
sent it to me, so I will do it. Yeah, I will do it.
Have you ever done one of those personality tests, Simon, like the 16 personalities?
Yes. I came out as an INFJ. So
Legends.
intuitive. What's it?
It's
Introvert, intuitive,
introverted,
feeling, judging. Yeah,
correct.
that's
And
it.
not only do I've said this on the other stream, not only do I get INFJ, I always get just 52% F. I only Brexit my F versus my T because my thinking and feeling are so close. But I always get introvert, intuitive, and the J means for the chat. It means like judging, which means being deliberative and taking your time and being cautious about how you proceed. So I always get IN. I'd love to try and predict Paul. I'm going to try and predict it live and see what he gets. Paul will be in. I think he'll be in E, though he can be a bit I as well. But I'm going to go E.
What's I?
I is introverted. I'm going to go E for Paul. Now,
what's E?
Extroverted. I'm going to go. Now, do I go N or what's the other one? No, I think I go. Is that where the S comes in?
Sensing or intuitive, isn't it?
I go sensing for. I go the S for Paul because that tends to be people who are pragmatic.
Yeah.
So ES. Now, is he thinking or feeling? I'm going to go.
I think
F,
he's a thinker.
actually.
I think he's
really.
A thinker.
I think he's feeling. Just shows you see you don't know Paul like I did. I don't know.
By the way, I'm still here, and
no, I'm going to go
feeling this and thinking about it.
I'm going to go ESF, and then is he a J? I think he probably is a sort of secret J, or is he a J? I don't really know the non-J well enough to understand what the heck it is.
Judger.
Perceiving or judging. I think he's more perceived. I think he's less judgmental than I would be.
Yeah, I'm going ESFP, or you might be right, Paul. You might be right, Simon, that he's a T. And what is that type? That's the performer or the entertainer.
There you go.
Come on, Paul. You've done all right there. And if I swap out...
Well, it wasn't too bad, was it? I mean,
if I swap out for a T, you get an entrepreneur. So, I think I absolutely nailed... I think me and Simon together absolutely nailed this.
Well, I'll do the test.
Listen to this. The performer... and I'm ruining it for you now. Outgoing, friendly, spontaneous, and sociable individuals who enjoy new experiences, being at the center of attention, classic Paul, and bringing joy to others. Come on, if that's not Paul, who is? They often thrive in dynamic, hands-on roles where they can work with people, such as in healthcare or teaching. I mean, that is totally Paul. I think we've nailed him there.
Not worked in either, but
but similar, isn't it? You do that comparing thing for GB.
Yeah, I'm okay with people.
And me and Simon are exactly the same. Just to cut Paul off there, just because I wanted to get ours in, because I'm an I.
That was my eye kicking in there.
I had this years ago. I was tested by my mother. She was doing a psychology degree, and they did this thing, the Myers-Briggs type indicator, where you one of the 16 types, and it came out with interesting results. You do an IQ component as well, and I'm not. I'm suspicious of IQ. It said I'm not gonna say what the number was because it's invidious. It said I had an IQ in the top 1% of the population, but they also had tendencies consistent with a paranoid schizophrenic. But
mixed bag. Basically just came up with a picture of the Joker is what it came out with.
Good or bad news?
Well, there's a hidden modifier on the test that said it's okay. You're not really a paranoid schizophrenic because you have a tendency to exaggerate.
Man, that's fascinating because you also get the T at the end, the turbulent. I always get the turbulent, unfortunately, which is a very tricky personality to be because you get a little. Some of them do the. Have you checked that on you, Simon? Whether you get the turbulent? Do you
know I'd not heard that one.
I have to find. I promise I've deleted the photo. I'll have to find it. It's a little thing. I'll just chuck it on here, see if it does it. It adds on a little turbulent at the end, which is basically means someone who's less confident, greater sensitivity to stress or criticism, tendency to worry, and a higher capacity for learning and personal growth due to heightened self-awareness. So you won't have that one, Simon. You may have the T, but so just to get me and Simon in here, we're the advocate, which is a type characterized by introversion, intuition, feeling, and judging preferences, known as the idealist or the counselor. Compassionate, insightful, idealistic individuals with strong convictions and a desire to help others achieve their full potential. Often seen as quiet visionaries who are deeply thoughtful, organized, and sensitive to others' needs, preferring deep connections and structured environments. Isn't that just bang on?
And as a result, frequently crushed and broken by life. Yeah,
absolutely. But organized as all heck. And did start the stream late, but I got it together. And sensitive to others' needs. Well, I'm working on it. So anyway, that's a slight interruption. Why the hell did I go into that? And then Mighty Balzac, he's paying in some sort of foreign currency. Looks like Australian dollars or something. Says Nick would have done the tax returns for the guards. Yes, very, very true. Yes, absolutely. That is the kind of bloke. But so would Simon. So anyway,
I had a friend who went to
People are screaming for us to start.
Someone says,
streaming.
"Oh yeah, well they're gonna get banned." I mean, if you say on pause again, like I'm your puppet, I will go longer and you will get banned. Maybe I'm gonna give Martin one last warning. If you tell me to unpause on my own fucking stream that I've organised, not only will I not unpause, I will ban you. And actually, I'll just do annoying shit like this. Like, look at this. This is annoying, isn't it? Fuck you.
He's not going to do well in prison, Martin. You know, I had a friend in prison who made friends with people because he would fix things for the guards, like fix electronics and computers and things like that. So he did reasonably well. But he
became one on the podcast to have a friend in prison. Simon, by
he was a guy. He was an unexpected person to go to prison. It was a case, I think, of he was completely stitched up, unfortunately, and he went to prison for quite a serious offence that he hadn't done, as it turned out. But there you go.
Unpause. Watch the fucking original. Sorry, go on, Simon.
No, I mean there was one. He was telling me one incident where he was very handy and for the guards, and he actually alerted them to the fact that the prisoners had these vapes that they were allowed to have in the prison. But then he worked out that there was a little battery in the vapes, which they were using to power mobile phones, which they weren't supposed to have because they were taking these batteries out and stringing them together to power the mobile phones. So he grassed them all up to the guards.
Bloody grass.
Yes.
Hate grass.
But he did well as a result. He was left alone.
All right, I guess we carry on, but I'm only going to look at the page chats now because I don't want to look at the comments anymore.
It's raging.
You were not to be treated as a normal person. So after a couple of weeks, some prison officers said, "Oh, you're nothing like we were told you were going to be, Lucy."
Yeah.
What did they mean by that?
So apparently, when I was due to come in, when the police ring, I don't know how I'm not sure how it works. The prison transport comes to the police station and picks you up and takes you to the prison. So I'm assuming that the police and the prison have some liaison with either themselves or the driver of the van to tell who you are, etc., etc. So apparently the prison had been told, that I was aggressive and to watch out for me. I was a bit loopy and I might be aggressive and all of this and the other, which I've never been aggressive to anyone in my life. When I was arrested, I wasn't even cuffed. I was really polite and to the police and never aggressive. So I'm really unsure. So then I was standing at the gate one day waiting to go up to the Medicare, I think, and the same officer that was on reception that spoke to me initially and was like, made me feel really at ease, was there. And she said, "Do you know what? You're nothing like how we were told you were going to be." And I said, "Oh, what do you mean?" And she told me what they'd been told. And I said, "Oh, wow." I said, "Well, I don't know why you've been told that." And then one of the other guys that worked on the wing, he was like, "Yeah, you're nothing like how we thought you were going to be." And I just laughed. So they've obviously,
So that there was a sort of demonizing of you that continued. So this phrase, political prisoner, that's a very strong term, something we associate with totalitarian regimes. But it did feel like you were being treated differently, worse than other prisoners, because you were this Tory councillor's racist wife. The various, from November last year, you were eligible for different kinds of leave, were you not? Can
childcare rottles,
childcare rottles, and that's the right of temporary leave. So what happened when you applied for these things?
So as soon as I filled in the form, my OMU worker came, and I have to say I've said to you, he's great. My OMU worker at Peterborough was fab. He was always, in my corner. And he came with the form and I filled it out, and apparently he took it back, put it on the desk, and someone went, "Well, she's not going to get those." And he went, "Why not? She's entitled to them," type thing. And it was just a fight from then on in, and it was quite apparent quite early that they were not going to sign my rottles off and that they'd been blocked. And then I had a probation meeting in January, a video link with outside probation, and my inside probation officer was there as well, and she kind of said to me, "Oh, you're going to do rottles, Lucy," like it was a given, because obviously outside probation have to support that as well and think that they can manage your risk in the community. So they have a say in it as well. And she just said it like it was a given, you're going to do your rottles. And Paul went,
This is the probation officer.
Yeah, there's a bit of a problem there. And I said, "Yeah, that's a bit of a sore subject." He said, "They've been blocked."
So this guy, the probation officer you like very much, first of all, he said you shouldn't even be in here. And then he said he worked for many, many years in the probation service. He'd never seen anything like it. And he said, it is political, Lucy.
Yeah, I think he thought that had it not been married to who I'd been married to, I would have got a lot lesser sentence than what I did get.
And just to explain to people watching this, you were surrounded by women who were being given these kinds of leave. They were done for death by dangerous driving, for very serious crimes, but they were allowed out. And you, who had a 12-year-old daughter and a husband with a bone marrow condition, constantly told no.
Yeah, that's right. Well, and I watched other women, not that I'm saying that they shouldn't have been given their leave and their take, that's not what I'm saying. I think they should have been, but yeah, I was treated very differently to them.
And some of the reasons that I've seen say things like media interest.
Yeah, that was their first excuse. The media interest is too high. But then if you look at the Ministry of Justice guidelines on the reasons you should or shouldn't, what they go by, why you should give someone wattle, why you shouldn't give someone wattle, doesn't mention anything about that. That's not a legitimate reason not to give somebody a childcare wattle, because somebody might take a photo of them or something.
Were they it strikes me they had made you notorious and then they punished you for the notoriety.
Yeah, absolutely. That's how I felt. And I have to say, not by the officers that work in the prisons. Most of the officers are fab. And they're very impartial and they just treat everybody the same. But it was coming from higher up.
Yeah, they were all along. We felt the finger on the scales. Yeah. Lucy, I was astonished to hear that you were visited in prison by Prevent, the counter-terrorism group. What did they want?
I had a bit of a to-do with the girl who happened to be Asian when I first got to Drake Hall Prison. I was talking to another girl and we were talking about our children. And this particular girl that I was talking to was saying, "Oh, well, I get tagged soon. Will you get tagged?" So I was literally just explaining.
So tag is being able to leave the prison with an electronic.
Yeah, so home detention curfew. Yeah. So partway through your sentence, instead of serving it in jail, you serve it at home on curfew. But because of my offence, they said I wasn't eligible. That's actually not true. I was eligible by law, but presumed unsuitable. That's how they word it. So I was just having a conversation with this other girl about why I couldn't get tag. And obviously said, because unfortunately my offence has got racism in it, so that falls under that bracket, da-da-da-da-da. And so with that, this other girl who was Asian jumps off the freezer in the coffee shop that she was sitting on and just verbally attacks me. Racism in 2025. I hate people like you, da-da-da-da-da. And she'd obviously heard things about me because she was like, these people coming in on boats, they're legal. And I was a bit taken aback. I was like, wow, where's all this come from? I wasn't even talking about boats. I was talking about the reason I can't have tag. But in prison, I didn't really have any run-ins with anyone apart from that. And I was, I treated everybody with respect and then me. But you can't back down, if that makes sense. If someone's getting in your face or they think they can bully you have to stand your ground in prison. It can be not a very nice playground, and you don't have to be mean, but you do have to, be firm and fair, and say, I'm not standing for that. Otherwise you will get taken advantage of in prison. So yeah, I just said, why are you talking to me like this? Firstly, I'm not racist. Secondly, I don't know where you're getting your information from, but let's just leave it at that and agree to disagree. Then she carried on, well, people that come in boats, they are legal. Our people came in boats and they worked their asses off for you people. I was like, wow. And I just ignored her and I just walked off, and I'm not getting into this with her, uneducated fool. That's what I was thinking. I'm not having this argument with you. Walked off. But this particular girl in prison is known for being a bully. She's known for being a big mouth. When I went back to my house where I lived, crying at the end of it, that the girls knew whose name I was going to say before I'd even said it. Oh yeah, I've had loads. She thinks she's this, she's a bully, she's that. And the stories I heard about this particular girl throughout the prison whilst I was there, she was a known bully. She was a known, she was on a 10-year, I don't know what she'd done. She was on a 10-year sentence, so she was hardly an angel herself, was she?
So Prevent came, were they interested in you being far right?
Yeah, and what I'd said to her, that for whatever reason, it had been perceived as racist, and that I was, being racist towards this particular girl. And I was a bit perplexed. I was like, I don't really know why you're here. She was the one that was aggressive to me and started on me. I just stuck up for myself and told her to quit it. And I think it was because towards the end of the argument, she said, I'm a person of colour. What's that got to do with anything? I can quite clearly see that, your race, but I don't understand why you feel the need to tell me. So I don't think she liked that. But it was not,
Pause.
So I think she must have made, I think that she put in what they call a...
Can we just take a moment here? and at my bemusement, I'm sure everybody else's, that Prevent were involved at all in this situation. A conversation can happen in prison like that, I'm sure, all the time, okay? Prevent then interview Lucy Connolly as a result of it. That, to me, just undermines absolutely everything. I mean, we already know Prevent are a failed organisation. Had Prevent been working, Lucy Connolly would never have been arrested. There wouldn't have been anything to commentate on. So we already know this. But the idea that she can have this discussion, I'm sure it was more heated than she's articulating in this particular anecdote, that they then can get involved. And by the way, they're not getting involved if the conversation is the other way around. Absolutely not whatsoever. What is the point of Prevent? How is that in any way preventing anything?
The point of the Prevent is to check if anyone's reading Tolkien or Shakespeare.
Yeah,
particularly if Jacob Rees-Mogg is reading Tolkien. That's the main point of Prevent.
But isn't it? I mean,
do anyone remember those references?
Yes.
Oh, good. Otherwise, I just sound insane.
Yeah, exactly. But for me, it's quite. I'm taking the piss, of course, but it's incredibly serious. The idea that two people in prison can have that discussion, or two people can have that discussion anywhere, a cafe, a pub, walking in the street, whatever, and then Prevent get involved, is baffling, utterly baffling. I cannot see any benefit whatsoever from Prevent getting involved in that. Surely there's enough going on not to. And it feels to me, again, that this leans in or leads to or adds to the notion that this is political.
Yeah.
This is because this is Lucy Connolly having the conversation, not because of anything else. They are desperate. They know one thing, right? Again, this is my opinion. I hasten to add. They know one thing, that Lucy Connolly's sentence is going to end and she's going to come out. And when she does, they better have more mud on her, because what they've got on her right now does not stick at all. And they have not created any evidence to suggest that Lucy Connolly is a bad person of the note that would justify anything that's happened to her. So this whole thing stinks. Sorry, I'm getting wound up.
No, it seems very true. I mean, a lot of these agencies seem to kind of hover in the vicinity of people in a kind of hyper-vigilant way to be there, to be able to record these things and create these sort of patterns of behavior that will be useful later on. It's like, this is a very weird analogy, but a friend of mine, his brother was in the SAS and he had to go out to the Middle East at one point. I think it was 98 or something. And what they do is they drop the SAS on the ground, somewhere like Iraq, and they bomb around the desert, finding targets. And they do this thing, they have this laser, and they call it painting the target. They use this special laser to invisibly mark the target for the fighters or fighter bombers to come in and blat it out. And that's kind of like what these agencies do. They're sort of invisibly marking your record for later use.
Yeah, it just is. You can just sense it, right? You can just sense them trying to build the picture, desperately trying to build the picture. It goes back to what you were saying earlier about just filling this bag full of evidence in some way to bolster their case, because they're in a spot of bother now. They've got I've got thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of useful idiots on social media who will keep saying she pled guilty, who will keep saying she's a racist, who keep saying that she says she's a racist, who keep saying that there's evidence that she said racist things before this. No evidence exists as far as I'm aware. And that's just going to fizzle away. And what's going to be left, probably in about 6 to 8 weeks' time, is the fact that as a country, we imprisoned a mum, took her away from her daughter and her husband, and put her in prison for a tweet. Nothing is more sinister than that. I can't think of anything more sinister than that. What country does that?
Yeah, and it'd be interesting to see if America has anything to say about it. I'm torn on that, of course, because we want our sovereignty and we don't want to be part of the American empire. But at the same time, it'd be interesting to see what the likes of Trump and Vance have to say about, if she does end up speaking to Trump's team. As I say, I'm not sure if that's true or not.
Yeah, there was rumours she would do today, and that didn't happen. But I can see it happening. And I'm with you on this, especially with regards to the sovereignty aspect. And as much as I like America, we can stand on our own 2 feet. But right now, can we? It feels like we need an ally in this. It feels like we need someone to just continually point out, "Hello, what are you doing?"
I know it's very weird times. It's funny if they obviously bad if the US sanctioned us because of Lucy Connolly, but kind of bants as well. By the way, I just read out before that people with INFJT tend to be more prone to stress, anxiety, and self-doubt, and often more sensitive and emotionally reactive. Then people just mess with me in the chat. Do you know what I mean? Like on pause. How do you think I'm going to react to that? Badly, isn't it? Anyway, sorry. Anything else you want to say as we go through this final stretch of 15 minutes? All right.
Death, if you feel that you've been discriminated against.
But you were cleared of that.
Yes. And then there was another investigation into the death because it just wasn't how it was said to be. I wasn't saying she was, like I said, she was the one. And I maintained all along, look at her record and look at mine. I've never even had so much as a telling off in prison. She's constantly round with people.
But you were generally a model prisoner who should have been eligible for all the various perks and so on, and yet you were repeatedly denied. And you do think that was coming from a higher authority?
I do. Yeah.
And how high do you think it went? Do you think the governor was being leaned on?
I've no idea, because obviously the prisons I do think the governors were being leaned on, or they felt that they couldn't grant it because they would be, perceived as not standing with the government or that kind of thing.
I think there's an enthusiasm, Lucy, for someone like you to be far-right extremist. Yes,
I think it fits their narrative really well, as opposed to saying, oh, she was just a mum that was upset that shouldn't have said what she said. They have to, but why do they have to give everybody a label?
Back in May, I was there in the Court of Appeal when the judges chose not to reduce your sentence. They said it was not manifestly excessive, even though I think by that stage the majority of British people thought it was clearly ludicrous. You were very upset, I know. You said to me the judges were cruel bastards because you wanted to get home to be with your daughter. What do you think of a legal system that keeps a mother who poses no risk to the public behind bars? And more generally, how many women in jail with you should be there?
Oh God, I'd say 80%. I could comfortably say that I would let 80% of the women, and I'm talking about female estate now. I don't know what the situation for the men's estate. You could comfortably let 80% of those women out the door, and they would not be a risk to the public. They've ended up in there through circumstance, through hard times, not the right help, and it's true. We're all one mistake away from a prison sentence.
And you said to me you thought that a lot of the women were in there were covering up for their men. I
think so. You come across a lot of women that are in there, and there's a man involved somewhere with domestic violence, coercion. There was a lot of, in Peterborough certainly, there was a lot of young girls that were on conspiracy charges to drugs that you just know had been sucked in by these big dealers, promising them the earth, this, that, and the other, getting in their heads. And
so with what they spent on putting you in prison for just 12.4 months, what would that money be better spent on?
Housing, mental health, rehab. You know, we're letting people out of prison homeless and wondering why 3 weeks later they're back.
Yeah.
It's a no-brainer, isn't it?
You said to me, it struck me, you said, we're like rats in a box.
We are.
Is that how good?
Absolutely.
That's what it's like.
It doesn't do any. I do not see what was achieved by sending me and the likes of me to prison other than a massive cost to the taxpayer. What's been achieved from that?
When you were back at Peterborough Prison, there was an episode not long ago, really unpleasant episode, where you were expecting to go to the enhanced wing, a better quality of wing because of your record, and they announced you were going to quite a dodgy, I'm not sure what's the polite way of saying it, like the Wild West wing.
Well, it's got like, and it's not come from me. It's like, it's got all kinds of nicknames upstairs, the Bronx, Beirut, the Twos, like it's a bit of a different world to downstairs for various reasons, but it's almost like two different jails.
So when you were told you were going there and you were expecting to go to the nicer place, you said, I
said, no, I'm not.
I'm not going. And then what happened?
And I said it it wasn't like a bullshit, but I said, no, I'm going to E1. That's what I've been told. It's on the board and everything. No, you can't go there because we've done a security check and there's intel on you. And I was like, really? I find that really, really hard to believe. I said, what intel? We can't tell you. I said, well, I'm going on a visit now, so I can't pack my stuff and go anywhere. And, even the officer that's coming to get me said, well, she's going on a visit now. This other officer's trying to thrust bags at me and tell me to pack my stuff up, moving. And if I didn't do it, she'd do it for me. I said, well, I'm going on my visit now. She said, well, I'm going to nick you then for disobeying a direct order. I went, do what you like. And went on my visit. Came back and she had nicked me and there was no talking about it. I asked her to get me a senior officer to talk about the discussion. She wouldn't do it. She said, I've nicked you of her refusing to move. I said, is there no discussion to be had about this? Because this is not what I was told and I want to know what this intel is. Can't tell you. So with that, I went to my nicking the next day, was told by one of the governors that, I thought I was better than everybody else and I'm no better than anyone in that prison and I will be going to A2 and that's that. So,
And then they forcibly moved you.
They did. So I went back to the house block and I was followed by quite a lot of officers from the segregation unit because that's where all the nickings happen. And all of a sudden, as they opened the doors to the house block, there was just all of these officers and the nurse. Now, they only get the nurse when they're intending on what we call in prison bending someone up, forcibly moving somebody. Different officers do it different ways, but they can really hurt you if they want to. And they decided on that day they were going to really hurt me. And I mean, really hurt me. I've got a lot of witnesses saying it was horrendous to witness. And the more I screamed, the more they hurt me. Completely unnecessary. I was sitting on the floor crying, saying I didn't want to go upstairs. And with that, they just sit on me. And
so handcuffs,
arms behind my back, bent my arm and pushed my elbows further up my back and further up my back and further up my back. And it really, really did hurt. The handcuffs were on so tight, they couldn't get them off. And there was all bruises all up my arms. And I need to go to a chiropractor about my back and my shoulder because they hurt me so badly. And it was completely unnecessary.
Might they have been trying to provoke a reaction from you?
I do wonder, but I also know that the officers that did it had never had any interaction with me. And I'm quite confident that had the manager have gone to the officers that do know me well there and have had a lot of interaction with me and said, go and bend Lucy up, they'd have said, absolutely not. What on earth are you bending her up for? Just talk to her, and after it happened, people were like, no, they didn't do that. Nobody believed me, they bent you up. Everyone was just and the whole prison was just really shocked because I'm the last person they'd expect, to get bent up and dragged upstairs because.
So massively disproportionate, but then we could say that almost all of your treatment throughout this year has been.
Well, I think so.
Extremely
absolutely
disproportionate. In your evidence to the Court of Appeal, you said that whenever any.
Just to say, Lucy Connolly was in HMP Peterborough, which is one of the 6 prisons run by the multi-billion euro French group Sodexo. And if you have just a brief look into Sodexo, there's quite a list of allegations of abuse that go on in Sodexo prisons. There's various things you can look up on if you look at Wikipedia, for example, there's cases going back to 2013. There was a female prisoner subjected to cruel, inhumane and degrading treatment, which appears to amount to torture at HMP Bronzefield in Ashford. In 2016, there was a video of naked Sodexo prisoners pretending to be dogs that was found, prompting an investigation into violence and humiliation. There was a lady at Peterborough in 2017 who died, and the inquest found failings on the part of the prison, healthcare staff, GPs and custody officers that contributed to her death. There was a BBC Panorama programme the same year about mismanagement issues relating to widespread illegal substance abuse, etc., etc. Systemic failings resulting in the death of prisoner in 2018, and so on and so forth. And this sort of behaviour that she underwent, being bent up, as she says, you've got to remember that the same rules that apply to us in cases of civilian self-defense or police officers apply to prison guards, that this kind of physically addressing a patient, an inmate rather, it has to be proportionate, reasonable and necessary. And in the circumstances, it doesn't look like that was the case with her. It looks like obvious heavy-handed treatment in a manner that really kind of plays to probably some sort of sadistic urge that's going on in some of the people who are prison guards. But I just thought that was interesting about Sodexo and its record.
Yeah, interesting. I've sort of slightly zoned out. One, due to trying to find that Times article, which I couldn't, and two, and then the login wasn't working. And also, once someone said unpause, that was kind of it for me. That kind of just took me out there. Because this isn't a prison.
Hammer.
This isn't a prison, and I'm not your slave. I did that kind of thing. Just drives me insane. So I've kind of let you guys take it over. But it's been good. It's been high quality content, I think. It's really great having both of you here, by the way. Anything else before we go through this last?
No, just to echo what Simon said there. I mean, I don't know whether to be shocked or not by that treatment of Lucy there, because you kind of expect that kind of thing to go on in prison. It feels like it's a tough world, and it's one of the reasons that none of us would want to be part of it. But at the same time, again, can I just point out that she sent a tweet? I mean, the idea of somebody getting bent up, as she says, roughed up, beaten up, essentially, treated poorly, punished, the mild end of torture for sending a tweet is still, I just don't want people to be any less astonished by it than the first time they heard it, really.
Yeah, and maybe I read it out too early, but that's the part I was reading from the article earlier, and it's good to hear it. Well, not good to hear it, but it's interesting to hear it as well from Lucy. Pretty disgusting stuff. And yeah,
it's like a scene from Scum, isn't it?
I know. A mother who wrote a tweet. I mean, your anger at the regime. What's that thing? You don't hate journalists enough. You think you do. We don't. Obviously, Alison accepted, but you don't hate the regime enough. Gone, Simon.
I just don't think it's acceptable in any way for us to have a state where there are formal institutions where we just kind of say, and it's understandable when you say it, Paul, that when you go into prison, well, you just kind of disappear into a sort of Darwinian hellscape, and that's it. Really, I mean, I kind of don't like the way these things happen in prisons. I mean, I think they should be
where's the ECHR in prison?
They should be ultra controlled environments. There shouldn't be any of this stuff of you're going to expect to be brutalized. I mean, again, another friend of mine, she ended up being a circuit judge, and we talked years ago, and I had a very retributive vision of prison. I said, well, there should be punishments, there should be chain gangs, there should be working and all this kind of stuff. And she was like, no, the only purpose of prison, essentially, when you sent to prison, it's just only solely to deprive you of your liberty. There's nothing else that goes with that, and you can talk about rehabilitative function as well. But I just think all of that sort of brutalized existence of prison actually should be part of the system's priority to strip that out. There shouldn't be any of this kind of, you go into prison and there's a kind of hierarchy of lags, and some of them have status and power over other prisoners. I think they've all got to be reduced to the same level of scum that they all are. I don't care. I don't like this idea that you sort of leave it as a jungle, which they kind of get to run themselves. And part of going to prison is to teach you the lesson that that's okay. When they do that, they're in there because they're objectionable to society. So they shouldn't be allowed to run their own society. They should be absolutely under our boot, not the other way around.
Yeah, it inevitably becomes its own hierarchy, doesn't it? Did you watch that prison reality show with Peter Hitchens and Neil Parrish in there?
I haven't seen it. I've seen.
Oh,
it.
it's so interesting. If you want to see Peter Hitchens going to the loo, you won't. Well, you might get it somewhere else. I don't know what kind of forums you guys are in, but it's and Neil Parish was in there, the Tory MP, and I say hello to him at GB. I have said hello to him. He seems like a nice guy, but he was in there, and he famously looked at porn, didn't he, in the House of Commons? But he said he was looking at tractors. It was all very confusing.
Same thing to me, Nick.
But every time of course, every time they asked him about it in prison, he just went, just normal pornography.
Can we please clarify?
Let's just clarify, just absolutely normal. And then that kind of made them almost like him. But like, if it was, so what was it you're watching? Just normal, absolutely normal, nothing. Because if it was the wrong kind, it'd be in hell. And it was very interesting. It was a reality show. They tried to make it as realistic as possible, and it was actually pretty nasty. Even the show. You were thinking, this wouldn't be good. They put ex-inmates in there and just told them to act as if it was prison. You're thinking, this wouldn't be great. Even in this reality show, it was not pleasant.
I used to have a recurring nightmare that I went to prison.
Really?
Yeah.
And then you woke up and you were on a council state, and you were like, another day of top hierarchies, random violence, and trying to get by. Thank God I'm not in prison.
I just fought my way out the traditional way, basically, selling drugs and then moved on to white collar crime, and here I am now, GB News and talking about tractor porn.
You would land on your feet, Paul, a classic ESFP, known as a performer or entertainer, friendly, spontaneous, and outgoing. That would be you, just in there.
You'd be putting on jaunty theatricals.
I would not do well. I know I wouldn't do well because of school. School was the closest thing to a comprehensive school in the north is essentially a prison, and I just know I wouldn't do well. I'm just too complex. I'm just too damn complex, guys. And also, you also need to. The only thing is, I am reasonably strong, so I'd have to build up my muscle, and you just have to attack someone the first day, don't you?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I think you're going to give all our super chats to an Umbrella Man, Nick.
Umbrella Man says the unpaused person should be locked up. Comment of the day.
Nick gives all our money back to Umbrella Man.
Yeah, because we're not slaves. It's unbelievable. But people are like that. They just think you're just I figured it out the other day, because you're on their phone. They think they can control you and make you do things like a little computer character, or like they just they can pause you and play you and rewind. It's like, no, I can't. I actually am a person who doesn't just do everything you want on a whim. You freak. Anyway, most of them are great people. Great people. Sorry, I'm trying to be like my hero, another Nicholas J. Fuentes, who always slams his comments brutally, and I'm not like that. But I'm trying to work up to it.
Key Buckley with bring back capital punishment, though. That's got to be a winning comment.
Yeah, wouldn't it? Are we allowed to say that on YouTube? But I do think yes.
You're just reading out the comments. It's like reading out Lucy's tweet.
No, you're absolutely right. It's a completely. Obviously, it's an obvious policy. It's insane that we don't have that policy. Completely insane. But we could get in. There's a few insane policies. Not having capital punishment is, of course, completely insane. Letting women vote, those two together, and you've got yourself a twisted society, completely inverted society. Anyway, everyone agrees with that, so we may as well crack on. These two both wouldn't be able to vote in a normal world.
Fair
Anyone
enough.
expresses any doubts or fears about immigration, they're always called racist to shut the conversation down. But you said you should be allowed to be angry. They demonize those of us who are angry that our children aren't protected. I don't know how much you've seen of these pink protests that we've seen.
I haven't yet. No, it's not something, funnily enough, that's been displayed on the mainstream media, on BBC and things like that. You're limited in prison to what channels you've got. So you haven't got YouTube, you haven't got GB News and all of those things that do, both sides of the argument. So but I will be looking into that. I'm very interested to see what these ladies are up to.
Lots of mums and grandmas. And what struck me about these protests outside the migrant hostels is they are singing from the Lucy Connolly hymn sheet, and they are saying, you can't call us far right, we're just concerned. And they also basically say what you say, if this makes us racist, so be it. So do you feel now some change that you, I think, have been in the forefront of shifting the fact that shouting far right at people, mums and parents, isn't going to work anymore?
Well, I hope so, because like I said, as much as I agree that I shouldn't have said what I said, I'm also not the person that I've been portrayed to be. And neither, like you said, are these grandmas and these mums that just want their children to be able to be safe. We all should be able to let our kids walk out of the door in the morning and be as confident as we can be that they're going to get to school safely, that they're going to be able to do their dance class without something horrendous happening. We just want to know that the government are doing everything they can to make sure our children are safe. That's all they're asking. I don't think they're asking a lot, to be honest.
No. Your concern throughout has been for your daughter, who recently turned 13.
She did.
And I know you went. What did you go? First thing you got out of prison. What did you go and buy her yesterday?
Yeah, we went to Pandora.
Of course.
So she got her bracelet and a necklace that she wanted, because she did get birthday presents, and May took her to Vista Village to get her Lululemon stuff that she wanted, and she got lots of other bits. But I just felt like I wanted to buy her something from me. It's her 13th birthday.
Yeah.
And it's a charm bracelet, something you can add to and keep safe, isn't it? So
do you think when you look at the judicial system and the Prime Minister making these remarks and basically railroading people like you into jail, what has he done to your young teenager?
I just think he's also undermined her trust in the police and the system growing up, because like I've told you, my mum, we were always brought up that the police were there to help you, the government are there to help you, and she's not going to think that now, is she? She's going to think, well, hang on a minute, they put my mum in prison. And, a lot of people have said to me she had lots of issues from her friends. She really hasn't. They're like, your mum's in prison? Oh, that's stupid. From as far as I can make out and Ray can make out, she hasn't. She has had her struggles, but I don't think she's had any kind of backlash from the other children about it.
No. And you did have some of the little kids from the childminding came to visit
you. Yeah. We had a couple of my families come and visit me.
And what did they think?
I don't know. The older boys were really funny. So they were like more just like, what colour's your bedroom? You're like, what did they give you? If they could have got over there and had a look, they would have done. And then the younger ones, they didn't really get it. Their parents tried to explain, I think one of my parents just said, Lucy said something naughty. But he's not really old enough to understand. It was just like a big village hall, I guess, with some toys in it to him, and they brought the baby. And
Lucy, recently we've seen the US criticising Britain for the erosion of free speech in our country. Tomorrow I can disclose now with you that a senior representative from the Trump administration is coming here to this house to talk to you about being jailed for a hate crime. The Free Speech Union championed your cause. They funded your legal action. Would you now like to get involved in the fight for free speech?
Oh, absolutely. And I'll be forever grateful to the likes of Toby and the Free Speech and yourselves and everybody that backed me and said, no, this is wrong. Because I wouldn't have got through this, I don't think, without the support of good people, knowing that I had their backing. And free speech is exceedingly important in the UK, and it is something that seemingly is diminishing. I appreciate that you can't just go around saying exactly what you want when you want, but really trying to putting people in prison for something they said. That's
you have got a huge amount of support, and had a crowdfunder which has raised nearly 160,000 so far. I know you're hugely grateful. I have to say, people keep sending me checks for Lucy, so I may hand those over. I'll think about it. I'll think about it. It's a few £100. I'll buy you a couple of mojitos. It's been suggested.
I actually donated to Lucy. I just remembered. Did any of you guys donate? Not to put you on the spot.
No, I didn't know. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Guys, see, people can say what they want about ND, but he will donate.
he
Paul pretends to be a nice guy, but
man of the people.
When it really comes down to it, who is the nice guy?
Is this where you said you donated through hotchicksinprison.com? I vaguely remember you talking about that, Nick. I didn't realise it was Lucy.
Yeah. Some of the percentage goes to Lucy. She runs it. Just kidding, Lucy. Basically, there was this fund that some people were saying it goes to Lawrence Fox, but it doesn't. Yeah, there was this crowdfunder thing for Lucy, and I donated and shared it. No, just a small amount, more than these super chats, but a small amount. And I thought that was important to do. And it's good to hear Toby getting a shout out there. I always think I should text Toby when we used to do a podcast together, if only because he he's quite a useful guy to know.
Lord of the
And
Realm.
thank you to Colin, who says he's considering subscribing. You really should subscribe to nitdixon.net. We've got loads of stuff on there, but we'll talk about that at the end. And people are talking about Lotus Eaters. I guess we'll talk about that at the end. But all right, sorry, that was just I wanted to ask about the donations, but let's carry on.
Suggested you could even go into politics. One suggestion I quite liked was that Lucy Connolly could run for reform against Home Secretary Vet Cooper in her Yorkshire constituency. Does that appeal?
Well, who knows? I never thought I'd go to prison, but I did. So who knows what may happen in the future?
Yeah. So in my powers vested in you as interviewer, I'm going to give you 2 minutes face to face with the Prime Minister. What are you going to say to him? Have you been Keir Starmer's political prisoner?
Absolutely. And me and several other people. Like I said, it's important to remember that it wasn't just me. I, for some reason, seem to have had the most coverage, but there are people that are in equally awful situations that shouldn't be in there. And we should also be fighting for them and remembering them. And when they come out, give them the same support as what I'm getting from people as well. And I think with Keir Starmer, I think he needs to practice what he preaches. I think, he's a human rights lawyer. So maybe he needs to look back at what people's human rights are, what freedom of speech means, and what the laws are in this country. If he's so, bothered about sticking to the law and making the law work and not undermining the law. And I would also like to say to him that if he invested as much effort and money into housing, mental health, rehab, as he did to putting the likes of me in prison, the prisons will be empty.
I know you become passionate about prison reform, and you
pretty good anti-Starmer rant there, wasn't it? I like that. So. That was satisfying.
Reasoned as well. It didn't. She could have. I'm sure she prepared for it, but she could have just gone off with a load of vitriol. It could have just been a load of bleeps at that point. Yeah, I've got a few things to say to Starmer. Just a succession of bleeps.
Imagine the anger. You've been in prison. You've been mistreated. You've been taken away from your family for a tweet. Yeah, the rage you would have against Starmer. She was very composed.
Sure.
And, it's one of the more nauseating aspects of the current regime that it wears the clothes of the former regime, which was really, I suppose, the same, but it was the liberal democracy at an earlier stage, a less kind of totalitarian stage, you could say. Whereas now it's a strange post-liberal world, isn't it, where it still knows, I've always thought this is strange, it still knows that it's supposed to say that free speech is good, even though it doesn't believe that or value it in any way. But Starmer will go to America, we've got great free speech record, we're very proud of it, all this sort of thing. And even people like Sadiq Khan will say these things. So you're supposed to say that in this society, although none of them believe it. And actually, or they might believe they believe it, but none of them act like it in their revealed preference, you could say. So they still have to say it. It's fascinating. Although more and more we see on the left this thing of, it doesn't mean freedom from consequences. Free speech doesn't mean freedom from consequences. Yes, that is literally what it means, you moron. But they go, it doesn't mean. And so, have you noticed that? They still have to say free speech is good while not believing it. And so Lucy's absolutely right to say, why didn't you actually walk the walk then, Starmer, you numpty? All right. I'm bringing out the big insults at the very end. I went with numpty there, but it felt right.
Pretty good.
Someone like you with the Emma Bridgewater China wouldn't necessarily have had the experience. So is that one positive?
Absolutely. I'm the first one to say that I was that person that said, well, they're in prison. They did something to be there. They should be there. And then I met these women and they were so kind to me, a lot of them, when I went in. I'd never been to prison, and they look out. It sounds really silly, but sometimes in a women's prison, it really is like a community. Sometimes, of course, you get your bullies, you get your argy-bargy. It's hundreds of women living under one roof. But in the main, everybody, all the other women, this is my experience at Peterborough, want to see everyone else do well, and they will, help one another and bring each other up and support one another. And, when I started talking to these women and I heard their stories, you think, no wonder you have ended up in here. I'm surprised you didn't end up in here, way before you did.
So it's made you a more compassionate
Definitely.
Yeah. Would you consider now taking legal action against the police for misrepresenting you and against the prison service?
I definitely think that's something that I will be looking into. Again, I don't want to say too much because I need to seek legal advice on that. But I do think the police were dishonest in what they released and what they said about me, and I will be holding them to account for that.
Finally, after Harry Connolly died, you fought and fought like a lioness for years to get justice for your little boy, to get those charges of gross negligence. And you said, I will bloody well prove I'm right and you were wrong, you said. Are you going to do that with this as well?
You bet I am. You won't keep me down. Like I said, to all the people that, jeering that I was sent to prison, think it's a good thing, think it's funny, hope that they broke me while I was in there, but I'm here to tell you that they didn't. And I hope that I can use my experience to now do good, to reform the system, to hopefully make people listen to me, that the system, because a lot of people that work in there just feel like they're banging their head against a brick wall. I don't want to see women, being kept away from their children, sent to prison, and when they don't need to be there. What a waste of everybody's time and money. That's not what we should be doing as a country. And I will continue to fight and really hope that I can, even if in a small difference, help reform the system from somebody that's been there and lived it and survived to tell the tale.
Thank you. Thank you.
There it is. So, a couple of things. Thank you to Jimmy Yorkshire for the super chat. Thank you to Vanessa Rental. Thank you to Lily76. More super chats. That's loads of super chats. Thank you very much. Now that'll be 70% divided between us. It's it's a tough world, but thank you very much. And I actually put the person who said on pause in a timeout because they also said dance monkey, which even if it was a joke, after that they kind of double down with a joke. But there is a basic level of respect you have to have in the stream. And my justice is swift and brutal. And I don't actually know what a timeout does, but they disappeared. So, but thank you to all the super chatters, and T Dog Haberman, Proper Horror Show, Wenders, Kate Ashley, Mighty Balzac, of course Nigel Smith, Lady Sarcastro, Ducks and Coffee, great name. Anyone I'm missing? Kane Dingle Boxing, T Dog, did I say? All the legends. Thank you so much. Thanks to everyone. Any closing thoughts, Simon and Paul?
Over to you, Simon.
I just suspect she's probably going to turn up at the Reform Conference in early September, wielded as an avatar of the dysfunction of Keir Starmer's judicial political state.
Very shrewd. And knowing me, I'll then brutally turn against her. Because I hate reform these days. So then I will do another stream attacking Lucy Connolly for 3 hours. I could see how that could happen.
I mean, Rupert Lowe has obviously been expressive and advocated, for her case as well. I just have a feeling the way she was speaking, the kind of talking points she was hitting, the sort of definition, as I said, around her as the image of the kind of median, i.e. reform type voter, Labour background, but sort of married someone from the centre right. All of the kind of, diversity jargon is in there. She believes in the kind of the project of the liberal democracy. And it just feels like almost she's being teed up a bit, meeting with the Trump lawyers, the Trump Farage connection. It's almost like she's just going to be shunted over to be, as I say, wheeled out at some point.
Maybe you're right. It's very cynical, but it's cynical enough to be true. A timeout in YouTube live chat temporarily prevents a user from sending messages acting as a temporary mute for a chosen duration, such as 10 seconds, 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, or 24 hours. I don't know what mine's set to, but some people were panicking that it was saying, it bans them forever, but it's probably fine. That's probably correct. I haven't really thought about that, but it'd be fun to see if she sued Starmer. That would be great, Vance. What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, I mean, it's first of all, it's great. Well done, Alison Pearson. Great coup to get the first interview, and that's not just because she's Alison Pearson, i.e., a great journalist. That's because I'm assuming she's built a trusting relationship with Lucy and her family over the time that she's been in prison, which is testament to the fact that Alison is old school in terms of journalism. Desperately seeking the truth, come what may. We don't have that anymore. Very rarely do we have that anymore. So first of all, hats off to Alison for that. It's quite stark, this, for me. If you come away from watching this and thought to yourself, well, it's something and nothing really, isn't it? There's no real connection between what Keir Starmer said and did and what happened to Lucy Connolly. And I think you're naive at best. At worst, just downright stupid. It's quite clear. Okay, there's not a conspiracy to say otherwise. Again, this is my opinion. But I think we are now going to enter an interesting period where she'll be wheeled out all over the place. I expect to see her like Simon does at the Reform conference. She'll make endless TV appearances. In fact, it will be interesting to see where she makes her appearances. No doubt we'll bump into her in GB News or Talk TV or something of that nature. What I'd love to see, though, is her on, the BBC. Why aren't the BBC interested in identifying what the truth is here?
Well, yes, that sort of answers itself. Oh, my YouTube just went up to 18,000. That's nice. Thank you, everyone. It's just not a classic milestone, but it's nice nonetheless. And someone asking who Simon was, Colin was asking, and I told him he was from AA's channel. So Simon, it just reminded me, I should have done this at the start. Do you want to just send people to find you somewhere? Where can they find you? And
you could find me. I only hang out on Twitter at Simon__Roberts. And yes, I'm on the Academic Agents channel. Currently on a Wednesday at midday, we are doing, I mainly turn up for the ongoing cultural review type programs. And we're currently reviewing all the documentaries of Adam Curtis, which will probably take us into the next century at this rate. But nonetheless, it's quite enjoyable if you want to come and have a look and you like Adam Curtis.
Yep, and I've been doing them as well with Simon and sometimes Horus and Academic Agents. So check those out every Wednesday, 12 till about 3, frankly. And we've done about 3 of them. And and at the moment, I'll just run through what I'm doing because we'll ask Paul. Well, actually, first we'll ask Paul where to find you, Paul.
At Paul Cox Comedy everywhere. So please do come follow me on, I would say X particularly. I mean, I don't really, Facebook is somewhere I do share things, but largely it's on X, and Instagram really is just kind of occasional comedy club stuff. So if you really want to follow me, then follow me on X at Paul Cox Comedy. Thanks, Nick.
No worries. I'm at NJ Dixon, of course, and my schedule at the moment is Monday we release a guest episode on YouTube and the full version on nickdixon.net. We've just had the one with David Stark. You do very well, but we've got other ones forthcoming, and we did Raw Egg Nationalist as well. Wednesday, I'm currently doing the streams with AA and Simon, 12. Also doing Dixon Cox with Paul, which we release on Wednesdays as well. We did a live one as an experiment. It was bit complicated in various ways, but we'll probably go back to normal, and the full versions are available on nickdixon.net. Fridays I'm at Lotus Eaters and on the Lads Hour, and Saturday we do this Saturday stream. We've been doing it every week, so I mean, it's kind of a ridiculous amount when I read it out like that. But and I also did like a Substat live and other stuff as well, because I've gone completely mental because I'm barely doing GB, and I meant to do GB, but I barely do because it's too complicated. So I'm going to say one more thing. Someone saying pause to try and wind me up. Won't work. What was the thing I was going to say at the very end? Go to nickdixon.net for all the extra content. I was going to say one other thing, but it's completely gone out of my head. It's kind of, we are 3 hours in, to be fair. It was something about content. That's all I remember. But that's everything.
I will just say one of my Twitter followers asked me to. This is quite a convoluted way of doing it, but they want me to change my name by deed poll to Simon Balls, so I could be part of Balls and Dixon Cox. But I
don't think you need to, Simon.
I'm going to change it to Simon Scrotum, so that'll probably be a little bit of an easier sell.
That's fair. That is fair. I'm still hoping this thing comes back to me. I was going to say, but so far it hasn't. So that's not going to be great content. Waiting for Nick to remember stuff. That's really scraping the barrel of content.
Can you imagine? Just pause it, just long pauses for you going, no, still not got it.
I've remembered. It was that, will this be around, Simon? Aren't you going off somewhere on Saturday? And I might be as well.
On what, this week?
Saturday, we're Saturday 30th. I think you're not here, so we won't have a Saturday stream maybe.
Yes. I may not be around, and I may or may not be around in November, but I'll help to find substitute talking heads if you want one.
Okay, yeah, bring in your minions, and
yes.
yeah, we may not be here next week. Simon's away, and I'm possibly away, unless, So, but other than that, we're doing it every Saturday. So, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you to Paul and Simon. Thanks for all the super chats. I believe I got them all, and we'll see you very soon in one of these many, many bits of content we're doing. And God bless you all. And goodbye.
Have a very good evening.